545 projects which have stalled in the 47 counties, and their status of completion collectively amounting to an estimated project cost of 366 billion Kenya shillings. Now, thereof, the Senate recommends that the National Treasury, in the partnership with the Controller of Budget, Commission of Revenue Allocation, the Council of Governors, and the County Assemblies Forum, to 1, ensure that all county integrated development plans, CIDPs, and annual development plans are aligned to Vision 2030 with an implementation, monitoring, and evaluation framework in place. 2, address pending bills by prioritizing their payment, creating clear timeframes for payment, and publishing a schedule of payment of the same. And 3, prioritizing the completion of stalled development projects prior to undertaking or funding new projects.
Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Senator Agnes Zani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 47-1 to make a statement on a countrywide concern. Mainly, this is the 2019 Gross County Product Report that was launched by the Kenya Bureau of Statistics on 13th February 2019 that highlights the economic status of inequalities in counties. Mr. Speaker, this is an important report because it's actually the first one that has been produced within the devolution phase, and it has actually gone to give an equivalent of GDP as we know it, but at the county level. So it is actually the county equivalent of a GDP. Some people call it GCD. And it measures, therefore, if you look across the various counties, the inequalities of the various counties. This report, Mr. Speaker, clearly shows that at the end of the day, there's a lot of variation within the counties. And given the fact that right from the onset of devolution, what was expected is that devolution would equalize counties, this report, I think, becomes very key for us because it shows that no difference in terms of inequalities has been there. So, counties have grown, counties have improved, counties have developed, but inequalities within the various counties have remained more or less the same. I think, Mr. Speaker, that this becomes a very, very important a report for this House because we know through devolution, yes, there have been many, many improvements in various ways and in various things, but there are still various challenges that are there. Fundamental challenges have continued to affect the counties, including irregular or delayed disbursement of devolved funds from the National Exchequer, low revenue collection, weak and uncoordinated planning and execution, stalled projects, among many others, Mr. Speaker. In the light of the recently concluded devolution conference in Kirinyaga, it is evident that the counties are still grappling with these various issues. One of those issues is actually articulated in this particular report. Many aspects still need to be put into place, and these are the ones that will help to address the issue of inequalities within the counties. Better planning, for example, in the counties, improved quality of county leadership, prioritization, more investment. We're now hearing more about on-source revenue becoming a key issue within the counties. More participation in project identification, planning, and execution, more efforts to ensure that there's eradication of duplicity of effort, massive sensitization of leaders, and many others, Mr. Speaker. These are very, very key. As we know, the Senate is mandated to represent counties. We are here as senators because we take care of the various counties. And therefore, this specific report, now that it is actually been launched, becomes a centerpiece for this particular House. Implementation of devolved system of government is in its 6th year. in a significant amount of resources have been channeled to the counties. But county governments need to still step up efforts at strengthening their capacities in generating revenue locally. In addition, funds aimed at boosting counties that have experienced underdevelopment have been allocated through the Equalization Fund. And what this report shows is that with even the Equalization Fund, the element of equalizing counties has not been 100%. The statistics, Mr. Speaker, presented in the report show how much each county contributes to the respective sectors of the economy, and the county GDP data will thus provide the thinking behind the current strategies for revenue location with the principal objective of reorientating the approaches to ensure levels are achieved and equal levels are achieved within the various counties. The information on economic performance in these counties will provide a key determinant for revenue collection within the various counties and help to prioritize development. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to urge the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget that they actually liaise with the Ministry of Development and Planning together with the Kenya Bureau of Statistics to table the County Gross Product Report in the Senate, take a comprehensive report on the state of devolution in view of inequalities and contribution of the counties to the GDP, and last, take an audit report of the Equalization Fund, highlighting the contribution of the fund to eliminating inequalities in the counties. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Maina.
Mr. Speaker, I rise regarding a statement that occurred on the 12th of March, Tuesday. And Mr. Speaker, in the Hansard, it is quoted clearly.
Senator Maina, what are you referring to? Are you commenting on the statement by?
Yes.
The statement by Senator Zani?
No. I'm raising on a point of order regarding statements.
On a different statement?
Yes.
Then why don't we dispense off with the other statements first, then I call you on that one. Okay, Senator Laki Abishiro, on that same statement.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to congratulate Senator Zani for bringing this all-important statement. Indeed, this is a very important statement for the Senate because we've always discussed sustainability of counties. We've always discussed counties as being governments in themselves, and what a government does is it has development plans, it has GDP, it has sustainability plans, it has equality as guaranteed in the Constitution looked at. And so I think if there's one report that this House needs to pay very close attention to, and which perhaps should form both our legislative priorities as well as other priorities for this House, it should be this county gross products report. This would tell us which counties are sustainable. This would tell us which counties are a government, a real government, or a department of the national government. I've had discussions with some of the counties where the issues around stalled, and this has been the emotion that has been. Mr. Speaker, I beg to be protected from this noise making.
Senator, you're out of order. Members are consulting, but in high tones, not making noise. The Senate does not make noise. Okay, proceed. Let's consult in low tones.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, if there's one report that is really important for this House, it's this county gross products report. We've always complained our counties may not be as sustainable as we would have liked them to be. And if our mandate under Article 96 of the Constitution is to protect county government, what better place to start than to check the health of the counties and the economic status of the counties that is provided by the County Gross Product Report. Mr. Speaker, we've talked about outstanding bills, we've talked about stalled projects, we've talked about delayed disbursements where our counties cannot even operate for 2 weeks if the money doesn't come from national government. That is not how a government operates. A government has sustainability. A government can operate whether or not, another entity disburses funds to it. So I think...
Senator Mohamud, what is your intervention?
Speaker, I was concerned that the Senator Olekina and Senator Marala were harassing you. I think that if they want to see you, they should come to their office for consultation.
Okay. They have had. I have to follow the proceedings. Senator Alake, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague from Mandera for saving me from that as well. And so, Mr. Speaker, I think Senator Zani is onto something, and sometimes maybe this House we're not giving enough attention to some of these longer-term developmental and existential issues, and we are worried that sometimes counties are being looked at as unsustainable units, and therefore, if we look at this report and see the health of our counties and where the gaps are in terms of the financial sustainability, in terms of programmatic and service sustainability, and other governance issues, then I think this is going to form a very good basis on which we can exercise our mandate of oversight, representation, and legislation, because then we'll be able to legislate in terms of what the gaps will reveal. We will be able then to oversight where the gaps point to maybe below optimal stewardship of our resources. And so, Mr. Speaker, again, what I like about this is the fact that we are also interrogating the Equalization Fund. Mr. Speaker, Equalization Fund is supposed to have equalized some of the gaps where the marginalized communities or marginalized counties would then get extra resources to catch up with the rest of the country. I know I come from a county that qualifies, for instance, places like Isiolo County and the northern Kenya counties are supposed to benefit from Equalization Fund, but we don't know as yet whether or not these funds have done what they're supposed to do. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this, and I hope that this will be given the attention and the importance it deserves. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
Okay, order, members. Order. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon of a visiting delegation from the Vihiga County Assembly, members of the Committee on the Delegated Legislation. I request each member of the delegation to stand when called out so that they may be acknowledged in the Senator's tradition. They are Honorable Nixon Butia, Deputy Speaker, Honorable Elizabeth Mohonja, Chairperson, Honorable Callistus Ayodi, Member, Honorable Elisha Mara, Member, Honorable Jacqueline Mwenesi, Member, Honorable Sally Inonda, Member, Honorable Lucy Kemunto, Member, Honorable Stanley Kasiera, Member, Honorable Joseph Alukusa, Member, Honorable Violet Bagada, Member, Honorable Patrick Ahwale, Member, Honorable Stephen Mugalizi, Member, Honorable Edwin Kutai, Secretariat Rachel Siamba, Ms. Mary Olere, Mr. Joseph Binzu, Mr. Hilary Ano. On behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I welcome them to the Senate and wish them well for the remainder of their stay. I also would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from University of Nairobi Institute of Diplomacy and International Studies. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Senator George Khaniri.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to join you in welcoming the delegation from the great county of Vihiga and our students from the University of Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, the delegation from Vihiga, I had an opportunity to meet them this morning. They paid me a courtesy call. And in their own words, they were very satisfied with the meeting they had with our own Committee on Delegated Legislation, and they confessed that they had learned a lot within that interaction. Mr. Speaker, I just want to restate that one of our responsibilities that we must take very seriously is to ensure that our county assemblies are properly empowered to deal with matters to do with oversight. Empowered in all means. We must build their capacity, and I think we've been doing that since 2013, because they are our first line of call when it comes to oversight in the counties. We vote a lot of money to go to our counties, and Mr. Speaker, sir, in many of the counties when you go, there is nothing to show for these billions of shillings that go to the counties. And therefore, we just want to urge them. They are our closest partners in this devolution arrangement. We just want to urge them to remain vigilant. I'm very, very happy that I have a very vibrant county assembly this time round in Vihiga. I wish you well in your stay in Nairobi and a safe journey back to Vihiga. Asante.
Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join you and my distinguished younger brother from Vihiga, Senator Khaniri, in welcoming the delegation of colleagues from Vihiga County Assembly, colleagues whom I know each one of them personally because we interact with them very regularly in many public fora, and encourage them, like Senator Khaniri has said, and this indeed applies to all other counties, that county assemblers and their units are the primary oversight institutions and must learn the art of not only passing budgets, but tracking budget implementation to see that no money goes astray. Many counties are not accountable in the manner that is satisfactory to this House. And I know that Vihiga has one of the finest governors in this country, a man who was so distinguished as a member of parliament in the last two parliaments. And I encourage you, as our colleagues on the ground, to learn as much as you can, avoid being captured by any governor, and do your oversight without any fear, favor, or prejudice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I equally welcome students from our university, the University of Nairobi Institute of Diplomacy, an institute that I've had a very long relationship with, an institute that I used greatly to train diplomats for nascent countries like Somalia and South Sudan, to enable them start functioning as states. And I encourage them to also be connected with Parliament, because Parliament is an active face of diplomacy that any country that wants to move forward must use. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of Majority.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of myself and the Senate as well, I want to join you in welcoming the MCAs from Vihiga County and students from the University of Nairobi Institute of Diplomacy and International Studies, IDs. And Mr. Speaker, to say that, first of all, for our MCAs, as Senator George has said, Senator Sir George, I want to tell the MCAs of Vihiga that they are lucky to have one of the longest serving legislators in the Republic of Kenya. at a very young age. An example in this house, so far as the rules and procedure, our latter days Martin Shikuku, and Mr. Speaker, to tell them that if they can work closely with their senator, there's a lot that they can learn. Particularly, Mr. Speaker, when we talk about Senate upscaling its work when it comes to oversight, and particularly the plan that we have from this financial year, the last part of this financial year, next year, we as a Senate would like to go further to examine projects that are taking place in our counties. I looked at the Auditor General reports that we've tabled here that are going to be examined by our CPAC committee, and realized that, and I pleasantly saw, that the Auditor General has now moved to telling us about Project X, Project Y in certain corner of the county. In my county, for example, the Auditor General identifies some staff that were employed 6 months, in the campaign period, that took about 5 million shillings, and which county government is now struggling to see what to do with it. And so, Mr. Speaker, if the county assemblies can work closely with us, we are going to not only deal with post-mortem when it comes to resources of counties, we are actually going to avert great danger that can occur in counties. Because particularly when it's closer to elections, it's now apparently clear that a lot of contractors are giving huge projects and huge 10% for those projects, and which after elections, you realize that those projects become white elephants. And I will urge senators to be very keen with the Auditor General's report for 2017-2018, because it was an overlapping year when it comes to elections. There is a lot of malpractice that took place there. And the county assembly members, who perhaps, Mr. Speaker, some of them are new, I suspect, have a great opportunity to, in the second term of devolution, to look into that issue very critically. As for the ID students, I think this is the right place they chose to be, a place of great debate. And Mr. Speaker, I believe Senator Kindiki used to teach that school, but I was a beneficiary of a program which was for law school in the University of Nairobi and IDs, where I got the opportunity to train as a leader in Zanzibar, Dar es Salaam, Arusha, Makerere, and some of the things that we do now were planted in us. It wasn't by accident. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the leader is saying there's a stranger. I don't know who he's referring to. Whether it is His Excellency incoming Senator Baringo. Mr. Speaker, I'm really delighted to welcome the members of County Assembly from Vihiga County. Senator Kaniri will tell you Vihiga County is very close to me. It's a county where my great-grandfather, Harun Hasoa Kubasu, after absconding the throne from the line of Kabakas, went to learn God's word at Kima. And then from there he went to Bushangala to donate land to the church in Senator Malala's county. And that is why when I had to go through our cultural rite, I went to a place called Kima as well. So karibuni sana, members from Vihiga County Assembly. Please make sure as you pass by Shalom, you greet Mama Esther, who is my mom. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sorry, we like sending greetings where we are from. So we must send greetings at Shalom School. I spent a lot of time in Bunyore, and they will tell you that the longest serving principal was Esther Muhanji, who brought up that school, and she also raised me. Mr. Speaker, additionally, I want to ask them, because I have noted that they have come with a good number of female members. The ratio is good between the male and the female members. And just coming from the CSW, where I was representing the men and women of Kenya on the status of women, it is really encouraging to see that the chair of that committee is a female. In many other county assemblies, Mr. Speaker, we have had MCAs trying to say that nominated MCAs should not vote, Mr. Speaker. They must know that is unconstitutional. They're even removing the nominated MCAs from committees. That is extremely unconstitutional. We've had great leaders in this country who've come through nomination, such as Senator Wetangula, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, and yours truly, Senator of Nairobi, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, I want to welcome the members from the University of Nairobi, my alma mater. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of this university. That is why I honed leadership skills at the student organization of Nairobi University. We hope that we can have a great interaction with these students. I think many of them might be doing masters or the undergrad. Let us do a greater partnership between the Senate and these two institutions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Lokorio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to join you and my colleagues in welcoming the members of County Assembly of Vihiga to the Senate, and I also send greetings. Vihiga County Assembly, the majority party is ANC party, where I am a member, so I would like to welcome them and to remind them that...
Senator Yusuf Haji, what is your intervention?
I think I touched the wrong button because I wanted to contribute. I wanted to contribute, not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you next. Okay, Senator.
Okay, I would like to remind the county assemblies that Senate plays secondary oversight role. You play the primary oversight role. So every time, remember that you make our work easier when you do yours. So please focus so much on oversighting the county when as you do representation and budget making. I would also like to note that within that team we have the Secretary of the County Assemblies Forum, Jacqueline Mwenesi, and whatever you have learned here, please be taking it back to the County Assembly Forum and develop a closer working relationship between CAF and the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to welcome the Nairobi University Institute of Diplomacy students and also urge them to develop a partnership with the Senate. Thank you.
Senator Cleophas Malala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the spirit of where we come from, I also want to start by sending greetings and welcoming my colleagues from Vihiga County Assembly. I'm saying my colleagues because I was once a member of County Assembly, and here I am. I'm the senator for Kakamega. Let this be known that everything is possible. Second, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure members of the County Assembly countrywide that the Senate is committed in protecting county assemblies. And just an indication, we have a program called Senate Mashinani. Last year we were in Wasingishu, and we are just taking Senate next to the people. This is a show of commitment that the Senate is committed to protecting county assemblies. Mr. Speaker, I will even suggest that this year we take the Senate Mashinani to Vihiga County Assembly because they have a wonderful chamber. When you go to the Vihiga County Assembly, you'll think that you're in Parliament. And I want to suggest through Senator Khaniri that this year, if possible, we consider Vihiga County Assembly as our venue for the Senate Mashinani. Second, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the MCAs of this country that we are committed to ensuring that they execute their mandate effectively. When you look at our order paper today, order number 19, we are debating the County Ward Equitable Development Bill today. We know the importance of that bill. We know that MCAs were elected on the basis of development, and therefore you must deliver for your people. We want to assure you that as a Senate, we are going to ensure that that bill passes so that you can execute your mandate, and when you go back to your people in 2022, they say, yes, we appreciate the members of the County Assembly. Otherwise, I want to take this opportunity to welcome everybody, the students of the University of Nairobi, not University of Nairobi, the University of Nairobi. And I want to, we only have two serious universities. The United States International University, USIU, where I went, and this other one. So I want to welcome you to the Senate. And
what's your point of order, Senator Lokorio? Senator Lokorio, what's your point of order?
Is it, Mr. Speaker, is it in order for the Honorable Senator of Kakamega to decide that there is a university better than others and classify universities when the government is the one with the mandate to license universities?
What's your point of order, Senator Murkomen?
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for Senator Petrolina to try to confuse this nation, Mr. Speaker, when we know very well that there is only one the university, Mr. Speaker, and then others? Because, Mr. Speaker, there is only one university in this country that is called the University of Nairobi, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, and further, Mr. Speaker, is it in order for Senator Petrolina to also confuse this House, Mr. Speaker, insofar as ranking of universities is concerned? The university is ranked globally, Mr. Speaker, and as one of the best universities in the continent. And so, Mr. Speaker, there is ranking of universities she should revisit. Although, Mr. Speaker, I must put a rider. It is not that the other universities don't exist. We just want to say there is only one the. Mr. Speaker.
Leader of majority, you have made your point. What's your point of order, Wambua?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the point of order raised by Senator Lokorio was not disputing the name of the University of Nairobi. The question was, is Senator Malala in order to say that there are only two serious, underline the word serious, universities in this country, Mr. Speaker?
He's actually out of order. The senator is totally out of order. All universities give quality education and they have been accredited and approved. So I think let's make progress. I can see a lot of interest, but let's move to the next statement from Senator Lagat. Senator Lagat. Senator Bogisho, what is your point of order?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You have a point of
Senator, order members, order members.
Mr. Speaker, this is the chairperson. This is the chairman of the Committee on Delegated Legislation. Mr. Speaker, I've been asking to get a chance to welcome members of Vihiga, and it has gone round to people who, some of them have no idea whether what delegated legislation is about, Speaker.
You're out of order, Senator. Senator Bogisho, are you order members? Are you therefore saying the Speaker does not understand the people he's speaking to welcome the delegations? If you look around, most of the senators I gave an opportunity were people who either have associated very closely with the visiting delegation and also mixed with others also who wanted to speak. But I have noted your point. Senator Lagat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me this particular chance. Pursuant to the Standing Order 47-1, I rise to make a statement on the matter of national concern regarding the welfare of Kenyan doctors in Cuba. Mr. Speaker, sir, following a memorandum of understanding between Kenya and Cuba, steered by His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Cuban counterpart President Raul Castro, in March 2018, at least 50 Kenyan doctors were admitted to Latin America School of Medicine in Havana for specialized medical training. Mr. Speaker, sir, as you may have heard, one of the medics, Dr. Ali Juma, who was undertaking postgraduate diploma training in family medicine under the program, committed suicide due to hardship and frustration experienced in foreign land. I wish to convey my heartfelt condolence to the family and relatives of this Kenyan doctor. Mr. Speaker, sir, the doctors who have traveled to Cuba have on several occasions aired their grievances through the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union, stating that the cost of living was too high and that they would like their allowances to be enhanced and living conditions improved. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, sir, their pleas have fallen into deaf years. The doctors have also been requesting for return tickets home every year, as is the case with their Cuban counterparts in Kenya, but have been informed that they were not entitled of the same. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Kenya Medical Practitioner and Dentist Union had from the beginning advised against this program, which was shouted in uncertainties, and had appealed to the government to do due diligence, but the government did not heed the advice. Mr. Speaker, sir, while the Cuban doctors in Kenya are treated like kings and queens, Kenyan doctors are suffering in their country. Cuban doctors are treated to free housing, free transport, and full access to reliable internet, while our compatriots are forced to pay for their houses, which do not even have internet connectivity and of poor quality, and also pay their fares to their places of work. This is extremely unfair, Mr. Speaker. As legislators, we are the voice of the people. We cannot shy away from condemning that which is wrong. I therefore wish to bring this matter to the attention of the Senate. And I would also urge the Standing Committee on Health to investigate this matter, and also the national government to address this matter with the urgency it deserves, with a view of bringing the remaining 49 medics back home, pending the investigation and review of the unjust memorandum of understanding. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of Majority.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Senator Langat for coming up with this statement. This is extremely serious statement, Mr. Speaker, particularly because of the reports that which we have seen. I have seen on social media, and also the Kenya Medical Practitioners Trade Union on TV addressing this issue. And Mr. Speaker, I am more concerned about the welfare of those 49 doctors that have remained in Cuba, and circumstances under which the doctor who passed away, who is a relative of our colleague also, incidentally, from the National Assembly. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, our committee should be able to sit down with the Council of Governors and the CS Health to interrogate the terms and conditions for this exchange program. And Mr. Speaker, I have seen the living conditions of these doctors, the places where they live, ironically, their access to medicine, food. Mr. Speaker, that must be interrogated in a manner that is going to, Mr. Speaker, create the necessary transparency in this nation. Because even in the principle of reciprocity, we treat our their Cuban colleagues in this country well in terms of accommodation, in terms of welfare, payments, and so forth. Mr. Speaker, this House demands equal treatment for our colleagues in Cuba. Because, Mr. Speaker, training one doctor like the one we lost is not an easy thing. Training a doctor, Mr. Speaker, is such an expensive process. And, Mr. Speaker, it's over 10, even 20 million sometimes, because, over 10 million shillings to just train one doctor. And, of course, you cannot quantify the value of life. Losing anybody, whether there is a doctor or not, Mr. Speaker, cannot be quantified. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I thank Senator Kasanga, who is not here, for coming up with a bill on mental health. I think, Mr. Speaker, there is also a concern about mental health in this country, both for us ourselves, even doctors, and in fact, the most affected people are those who you would have expected that they are well-to-do, they have everything they need in life. But, Mr. Speaker, mental health is an area that, as a country, we must be able to deal with, including giving people who are in depression or in difficult situations as psychosocial support. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with Senator Langat and request that the committee that you are going to assign, which is obviously the Committee of Health, Mr. Speaker, must act expeditiously and within the next 2 weeks, Mr. Speaker, even less, even a week, give us an interim answer as to the condition and the situation of the doctors. And in fact, we want to see a high-ranking government official at the level of a permanent secretary and above, visiting those doctors in Cuba and giving us, Mr. Speaker, real-time response as to their welfare, how they are, whether they are being taken care of. And if, Mr. Speaker, this thing is not working, there is nothing wrong with admitting that it is not working. We want to get our doctors back, and we can train them in other countries. That's not the only place where you can say they are going to be trained. If the conditions are so deplorable, what kind of training are you trying to say, Mr. Speaker, they are going to achieve if they don't have the mental stability to consume and absorb any knowledge, Mr. Speaker, that is expected? So I urge you, Mr. Speaker, to order from your very important seat of authority, the Committee of Health, to give us an answer within the next 1 week. And Mr. Speaker, when they will be inviting the government officials that are responsible, we will be more than happy to attend as friends of the committee to come and listen to a response to that very important question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Olekina.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for allowing me to comment on this very important statement. I've read in the dailies about the circumstances that led to this doctor committing suicide. And we might be blaming the Cubans, yet we are not looking at the condition that we set. If indeed it is true that that doctor suffered depression because he tried to request the Ministry of Health to prepare his documentation for him to come back home and see his ailing child, then we are the ones who have failed and not the Cubans. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, as we are looking at all these circumstances that led to the depression, we have got to be open enough to accept where we have gone wrong. If indeed it is true that those doctors have not been paid their allowances, and yet this is a government-sponsored program, then we are the ones who are failing and not the Cubans. So I think, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is important, and I thank Dr. Langat, the distinguished senator from Bomet, for bringing this statement so that we know whether it is us or it is the Cubans. Before we blame the Cubans, yet we are the ones who are sending our people to go and learn, and yet we cannot give them their allowances when they are due. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cheriot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to make my contribution to what is an extremely important matter that is being canvassed by our colleague, Senator Dr. Christopher Langat. You remember, Mr. Speaker, that a few months back, we did make our contributions as senators in this House on the kind of agreement that the government had entered between Kenyan doctors and the Cubans on all this program, and the need to deposit before this House the exchange program documents that will help us to properly understand what is our side of the bargain in all this agreement. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, up to date, I have never been able to see those agreements. If they have been tabled before this House, then probably it will be good for us to have a look. If they haven't, I still insist, Mr. Speaker, that as part of your ruling, may you instruct that the program notes for this program, Mr. Speaker, be tabled before this House, so that as senators, as the primary constituents of counties and protecting their interest, we may be able to understand that what was expected of us as a Kenyan side and what our doctors were supposed to receive on the other side. Otherwise, it is really unfortunate that in this day and age, we can take the best of our professionals and treat them to this kind of suffering. If we can do this to medics as a country, what can we do to the rest of Kenyans? It is really unfortunate, and I call on you, Mr. Speaker, to give a firm ruling in the Committee of Health to delve deep into all the issues that are being raised by the doctors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chilayako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to lend my support to these wonderful issues that has been raised by my colleague, Senator Lagat. Indeed, when we lose a professional of this caliber, it's something that we should be very sad about. And when the loss is attributable to the fact that we are uncaring, we should remedy, we should mitigate this matter by expediting our activities of care. I want to urge the government side to be very sensitive to this matter. Doctors are very hard to train. Doctors are people who have achieved excellence in training and have sacrificed to study for long years. I know that Cuba is a country where difficulties are available. I had occasion to visit Cuba in my other life as Minister for Social Services, and I believe when we see a medic taking his own life, it is because it is unbearable. So I want to urge the committee that is responsible for this matter to ensure that we do not lose any other person. Right here at home, we also have Cuban doctors, and the information available to us is that the facilitation is also not good. Quite a number of them have been promised a lot of money, but when you look at how they are being treated, it is not good. Perhaps this is also contributing to the hardship, the lack of cooperation that our medics in Cuba are experiencing. So I want to request the relevant committee to ensure that both sides, Kenya and Cuba, take this matter seriously and are able to deal with it because it involves life and the future of our people.
Senator Hargura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank Senator Lagat for bringing up this issue. I'd also like to send my condolences to the family of Dr. Hamisi, who unfortunately had to take his life under these conditions. Mr. Speaker, doctors are, as it has been said, very important in this country. That is why we have to take them for training. But Mr. Speaker, I'm just surprised to learn that as a country, even when we want to invest in our own human resource, we don't look at the welfare of our doctors. And when we say that we wanted to learn from the Cubans, we have to know the circumstances in Cuba are very harsh. This is a communist country which has been under a lot of embargo for a long time. It's not like going to any Western country. So when we send our doctors there, we have to know what kind of situations they are going through. And when we sponsor them, I'm sure the issue of the allowances, I'm sure the committee will have to check that. But I expect the government to be paying directly to the accounts of these doctors, not the doctors having to wait to be sent the allowances by the ministry. And if they are civil servants, I'm not sure. I know as a civil servant, when you go on a study leave or on a sponsorship, you still get 80% of your salary. So what is going on? Does it mean that the doctors are not getting their salaries? Or what is happening? So I think the health committee needs to check very clearly under what conditions we sent our doctors to go and train on a course which I think 5 universities in Kenya are offering. Family medicine is being offered in 5 universities in this country. What was so important for us to take our doctors there, then we subject them to these conditions until they have to end up to take their life. I think the committee has to give us a very serious answer on that.
Senator Mogeni, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I first want to congratulate Senator Langat for bringing this matter to the attention of this House. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to pass my condolences to the family of Dr. Ali Juma Hamisi. And we pray that may God Almighty strengthen the family during this very difficult time. And Mr. Speaker, I seek your protection. There is very loud consultation to my right. And I'm apprehensive that somebody may box a senator next to me here on my right. Mr. Speaker, first, Mr. Speaker, it's not easy to train a doctor, Mr. Speaker. And it's painful, Mr. Speaker, for us as a country to realize that we have come to a stage where we train doctors, we send them abroad to enhance their skills in medicine, only for them to die, Mr. Speaker. That is a sad thing to happen to us, Mr. Speaker, and it's a matter that should concern all of us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
You are not on record. What's your point of order?
Speaker, Senator from Nyamira was asking for protection because on his right, there's loud consultation from the majority leader, Senator Zani and Petronila. So.
Let's consult in Lawton's leader of majority, Senator Mogeni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, so Mr. Speaker, it's painful, Mr. Speaker, to train doctors, send them to foreign countries, only for them to lose their lives, Mr. Speaker. As leaders, Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that we should not take lightly, Mr. Speaker. We received doctors from Cuba, Mr. Speaker, and I was privileged to be in the team of senators that traveled to Cuba to discuss and negotiate on those doctors coming to provide services in this country. I've not had a single case, Mr. Speaker, of any doctor from Cuba who has been subjected to any form of treatment that can cause him depression or any form of anxiety, Mr. Speaker. And what, Mr. Speaker, we can demand as a country is that the same treatment that we are extending to the Cuban doctors, the same treatment should be extended to our doctors who are sent to Cuba. And, Mr. Speaker, let's call a spade a spade.
What's your point of order, Senator? You are not on record.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thought Senator Omogeni is a member of Health Committee, and he even traveled to Cuba. I thought he's supposed to be giving us answers instead of asking questions, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Mogeni.
Mr. Speaker, I did not travel to Cuba to arrange for the death of the Kenyan doctor who has just died. We traveled to Cuba to negotiate for Cuban doctors to come and offer services in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, what is before the House is a sad situation where we have lost one of our doctors who was sent to...
What is your point of order, Leader of Majority?
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, Senator Mogeni is first of all revising the statement of Senator Langat, which statement was about conditions of doctors in Cuba, including now the situation that led to one of the doctors passing away. And so, Mr. Speaker, if the point of order raised by the Honorable Senator of Laikipia is very valid. What is the position of a committee member who, Mr. Speaker, even to make it worse, traveled to that country, Mr. Speaker, on the understanding that he was going to look after the condition of those doctors, among others. What is the position of such a member when he comes back to the floor of the House to, Mr. Speaker, lament before the rest of us were asking questions from the committee? Mr. Speaker, is it in order?
What's your point of order, Senator Chararige?
Also, to ride on that point of order, Mr. Speaker, sir. Oh, sorry, my apologies. I'm not riding on anything. Mr. Speaker, I'm not riding on anything. Is it in order for the great Senator, Senator Omogeni, senior counsel, is the only among the three in this House, to say when he travel as a committee, when and check conditions, is it in order for him just to lament like all of us, and yet is it in order for him, he should tell us whether he is aware of any negotiation deal between the Kenyan government and the Cuban government over the exchange program of the doctors? Because it looks like when the committee went to Cuba, Mr. Speaker, sir, it seems they were on a tourism excursion more than the
You're out of order, Senator Chararige. Out of order. You're out of order. I think Senator Mogeni is just contributing as a senator from Nyamira. And when the matter is referred to the Committee of Health, he will come, the official position will be given by the committee. Senator Mogeni, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the point I was making, Mr. Speaker, is that this is a matter that should be taken seriously by this House, Mr. Speaker. Already, Mr. Speaker, what should worry us is that out of the 50 doctors that were sent, we have just lost one life, but we have 49, Mr. Speaker. We need to know...
Order members, let him... if you want to talk, I'll give you an opportunity. Don't just talk from where you're sitting, and when we give you an opportunity, don't talk. So please, let's... Senator Mogeni, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, this House should be concerned about the welfare of the 49 lives of the other doctors who are still in Cuba, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, we should not take lightly the concerns that have been raised by the professional body that looks after the welfare of doctors. What is even worrying, Mr. Speaker, is that there is a likelihood that this doctor actually committed suicide, Mr. Speaker. And it means, Mr. Speaker, that there is a possibility, Mr. Speaker, that we have sent our doctors to Cuba. They are being subjected to conditions that have exposed them to serious depression. And, Mr. Speaker, we had rather have our doctors back to our country with their degrees without their postgraduate education if we are going to lose lives, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge you to ensure that if this matter is referred to the Committee of Health, they should do thorough investigations and give a report to this House, and if need be, our doctors should be recalled from Cuba back to this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mwinyi Haji.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia taarifa ya Senator Langat kuhusiana na kifo cha Dr.
Let's consult in low tones. Leader of majority. Proceed, Senator.
Mheshimiwa Spika, leader wa majority lazima aongoze kwa mfano. Yeye akiwa wa kwanza kuconsult kwa sauti inakuwa ni matatizo kwa sisi wengine. Tulimsikiza tukiwa kimya. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, marehemu Dr. Ali Juma Hamisi alikuwa ni daktari katika zahanati ya Likoni mjini Mombasa, akiwa ameajiriwa na kaunti ya Mombasa mpaka alipokwenda Cuba mnamo tarehe 24 mwezi wa 9 mwaka uliopita. Mheshimiwa Spika, madaktari hawa waliuliza mambo matatu kabla ya kusafiri. Walitaka kujua ile kozi wanayokwenda kufanya ni kozi gani, pili watakaa wapi, na tatu marupurupu yao yatakuwa namna gani. Mambo hayo hayakujibiwa mpaka juzi tarehe 4 ndio wizara imepeleka barua kusema kwamba watalipa allowances marupurupu ya shilingi 33,000 kwa mwezi kuanzia mwezi wa 9 mwaka 2018. Mheshimiwa Spika, mpaka juzi tarehe 4 walikuwa wamelipwa marupurupu ya miezi 2 peke yake, mwezi wa 9 na mwezi wa 10 mwaka 2018. Mheshimiwa Spika, mbali na kukosa marupurupu ni kwamba malazi ama mahali walipokuwa wanaishi ilikuwa ni mahali ambapo haparidhishi. Hakuna tunasema internet, wala hakuna mawasiliano mazuri baina ya familia zao na madaktari walioko kula Cuba. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, hali zao za maisha zilikuwa zimerudi chini kuliko vile ambavyo walikuwa wanaishi hapa Kenya wakati wanafanya kazi serikali na kaunti tofauti nchini Kenya. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, swala hili ni swala zito sana na ni swala ambalo lazima litiliwe uzito kwa sababu maisha yamepotea katika hali ambayo ni utatanishi. Marehemu Dr. Ali alikuwa arudi nyumbani Jumanne ya jana, yani tarehe 19 jana alikuwa arudi nyumbani. Alikuwa ameshakata tikiti na ashazungumza na familia yake kwamba anarudi nyumbani tarehe 19. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, hali hii ya utata katika na maisha yake ni kwamba lazima serikali ichunguze swala hili na bunge hili limuite waziri wa afya pamoja na maafisa wetu ambao wanasimamia mambo ya ubalozi ili kuhakikisha kwamba hakuna jambo lolote bali litokea kabla ya marehemu kupoteza maisha yake. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Sakaja.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's a quote that Martin Luther King once gave in September of 1960 at the Golden Anniversary Conference. He said that it is a trite yet true observation that if America is to remain a first-class country, it cannot have a second-class citizen. Mr. Speaker, this is true for Kenya as well. That if Kenya is to remain a first-class country, it cannot have a second-class citizen. Mr. Speaker, if you saw how, when these doctors from Cuba were being received in Kenya, governors were falling over themselves, trying to welcome them, give them, I think, houses with swimming pools, you know, going beyond the extra mile to make them comfortable, as if they are more special than the Kenyan doctors who left, Mr. Speaker. Yet, in the same breath, the Kenyans who went there are living in conditions that are not befitting to people who we have trained, and least of all, of the medical profession, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it cannot be that as a country, we value foreigners more than we value our own people. Because even such a country cannot then respect Kenya as a country. That for us, whether it is our mission abroad or our ministry, that we are okay with the ill treatment of Kenyans living in squalor, yet they are doctors, but over here we are going beyond the extra mile to provide luxuries to these Cuban doctors. Just the other day, Mr. Speaker, we were discussing in this house how there are certain diseases, and I remember Senator Malala was trying to describe. There are some diseases which cannot be described apart from mother tongue in the villages, that these doctors cannot understand. When the Kenya Medical Association says, Mr. Speaker, that family medicine is a program, the family medicine program in Cuba is not recognized by the international community, and it is not also recognized in Kenya, we're not taking them seriously. Mr. Speaker, when the KMPDU is saying that, number one, they are opposed to the manner in which the deal was executed, in complete disregard of established procedures for licensing and deployment of foreign medical personnel and selection of training programs, we are not taking them seriously. And that is why we wanted Senator Omogeni, for instance, and the Health Committee to give us more details of what this arrangement was. Are these doctors, these Kenyan doctors, there on forced labor? Are they, captive? Why is it that if they want to come back home, they cannot come home, Mr. Speaker? This is more than a health issue. This is a health issue. This is a labor relations issue, because it's a labor issue. They have rights as any other employee of our county governments, of our government. I know I don't want to be part of it, but I'm saying it must be looked at in all that aspects. Mr. Speaker, we are being told that these doctors are complaining of high-handedness at the Kenyan embassy. Any Kenyan who is not in this country must be able to see our embassies and consulates as a fortress, as a home, that if they go there, they're received and they're treated with the dignity they deserve. We see it with other countries. If you touch an American, my friend, you will be taken to that embassy. If they go, they know they're at home. They're protected. So, Mr. Speaker, let us take this matter seriously. We cannot allow the mistreatment of a Kenyan anywhere in this world if we're to truly be a first-class country.
I see there's a lot of interest, but let me give an opportunity to Senator Madzayo, then we move on.
Shukran, Bwana Spika, kwa kunipa nafasi hii. Bwana Spika, cha kwanza ni kwamba nataka kusema huyu anatoka eneo la Pwani, daktari aliyefariki, na mimi nikiwa mmoja wa mhusika, nikipenda kutoa rambirambi kwa ile familia iliyopoteza huyu daktari. Cha msingi ama cha maana zaidi, Bwana Spika, chama cha madaktari walikuwa wamekataa mkataba huu, wakasema hawaukubali kabisa. Lakini serikali ikaonelea ni lazima iendelee na mkataba huu, na hatimaye ikafaulu na ikaona ya kwamba lazima wale madaktari waje, na walikuja na wakakaribishwa vile wenzangu walivyosema, wakakaribishwa kitajiri. Sisi tunasema kitu kimoja: ikiwa mtu amekataa na wewe umemlazimisha, basi Waswahili walikwambia mwenda tezi na omo marejeo ngamani. Hii ndio faida tunayoipata hivi sasa, kuona ya kwamba sisi tulikuwa kama Wakenya, tulikuwa mbavu, tukaingia katika mkataba ambao haufai, na hatimaye tumeweza kupoteza daktari mmoja. Huyu waziri anaitwa Cecily Kariuki. Tokea huyu daktari afe, na yeye ni waziri wa afya, na wizara yake ndio ilifanya ya kwamba, Bwana Spika, hawa madaktari waende kule. Amesema nini mpaka leo? Mbona amekuwa bubu? Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, mimi nataka kusema ya kwamba kama huyu Cecil Kariuki ameshindwa na hii kazi ya uwaziri wa afya katika Kenya, atoke. Awachie madaktari wengine waweze kuketi pale wafanye hiyo kazi. Bwana Spika, mimi nataka kusema ya kwamba ile vile wale madaktari wetu wako kule, habari zinazotufikia hapa ambazo zio kweli, wanaketi wanaume watatu ndani ya rumu moja. Sisi wa Kenya, mwanamume kama mimi na ndugu yangu chairman wangu Sakaja, hatuwezi kulala kwenye chumba kimoja. Hairuhusiwi kiafrika. Mimi na ndugu yangu Wambua hatuwezi kulala kwa chumba kimoja. Hairuhusiwi kiafrika. Itakuwaje madaktari, watu ambao wameshahitimu na wameenda kufanya masomo ya juu, watu wao hapa wa Cuba tumewachukua kwa heshima. Watu wetu kule wanalazwa katika hali ambayo si ya kibinadamu hata kidogo. Wanaume watatu wakilala kwenye room, si kiafrika. Kama wa Cuba wanafanya hivyo, lakini hapa kwetu sisi kama wa Kenya haiwezekani. Mimi na ndugu yangu Harigura kulala kwenye room moja, haiwezekani. Kwa hiyo tunasema heshima lazima iregeshwe na heshima. Ikiwa huu mkataba hauna heshima, sioni faida ya kwamba serikali ya Kenya iendelee kuwa na huu mkataba. Sisi baina ya sisi na watu wa Cuba, wale madaktari walio kule kwetu, kabla hatujapoteza mtu mwingine, waweze kurejeshwa nyumbani. Manake kuna ripoti ya kwamba pia huyu ndugu yetu Ali alikuwa amesema amechoka na yale mateso na akasema anataka kurudi nyumbani, lakini alitishiwa maisha yake, na daktari yoyote ambaye alikuwa anaweza kusema ya kwamba anataka kurudi nyumbani walikuwa wanatishwa. Hata wakienda katika embassy yetu kule, watu wanatishwa, wanaambiwa hauwezi kukata mkataba mpaka mkataba umalizike. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, mimi nasema ikiwa inawezekana, ambao jambo linaweza kuwezekana, hii kamati ambayo itachunguza hii ichukue msimamo wa kikamilifu, kuona ya kwamba wamejadiliana na wamekuja na suluhu. Na sisi tunasema ya kwamba ni lazima waziri wa afya katika Kenya, serikali ya Kenya, aweze kuweka msimamo kama hii mkataba utaendelea ama utakatwa mara moja, ili madaktari wetu warudi nyumbani, waachane na yale mateso. Hatutaki tena mambo ya Cuba. Asante sana Bwana Spika.
Honorable Senators, I think pursuant to Standing Order number 47.3, I refer this request to the Committee on Health. The committee is hereby directed to take note of the concerns raised by senators and give us a comprehensive response in the next 14 days. I thank you. Next statement by Leader of Minority, executed by Senator Ledama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, on behalf of the Leader of Minority, I'd like to request a statement on the fight against corruption by a multi-agency team. Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Order 48.1, I rise to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights on the ongoing fight against corruption by the multi-agency team. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the statement, the committee should, 1, state the composition of the multi-agency team that is leading the fight against corruption in the country. 2, explain the support being accorded by the national government to the multi-agency team, MAT, in the fight against corruption. 3, state whether the principle of non-interference with independent offices is still being upheld in government in light of threats issued against the Director of Public Prosecution, DPP, and the Inspector General of Police through the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, DCI, in their fight against corruption. 4, assure the country that the fight against corruption will not be scuttled by those attempting to interfere with the operations of independent offices. And finally, explain the incoherence and disharmony of government policy in the war against corruption as against the clear and unambiguous commitment by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Senators, order. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon of visiting staff and resource persons from the various states' parliaments attending the inaugural African Parliamentary Researchers Conference. I request each member of the delegation to stand when called out so that they may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. They are Mr. Wolfgang Hiller, Director, European Parliamentary Research Service, Brussels, German. 2, Mr. Mark Quina, National Conference of State Legislature, USA. And 3, Mr. John Power, Director, Prince Northern Conference, Ireland Assembly, UK. On behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I welcome them to the Senate and wish them well for the remainder of their stay. I thank you. Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to join you in welcoming our visitors to the Senate and Parliament, and I hope they will learn a lot. Secondly, on the statement requested by the leader of minority through Senator Ledamo Olekina. Interestingly, the Senate Minority Leader is a member of Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights Committee, and I want to assure the Minority Leader and Senator Ledamo Olekina that we will ensure we address the concerns that he has raised through the statements as a committee. In fact, I want to report to this House, Mr. Speaker, I know we'll table this report, that last week we had a fruitful discussion with multi-agency team led by Attorney General Kiara Kariuki, the DPP, DCI, KRA, and NIS, among other agencies that work in coordination, and even the EACC led by the new CEO. I agree that the fight against corruption in this country, Mr. Speaker, sir, should be done in good faith, but it should be devoid of political witch hunt, ethnic profiling, or any other form of being used as a weaponization in terms of politicization in this country. So as a committee, we will avoid all unnecessary vested interests that have arisen over the few months. And Senator Ledamo Olekina is aware of this. The statement, we will try as possible, Mr. Speaker, sir, to address devoid of political witch hunt, devoid of ethnic profiling, and devoid of weaponization or politicization of corruption in this country. Finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, there are so many amendments that multi-agency have proposed, and I know when the right time comes, I will ask the House to rise up to the occasion and assist us in fast-tracking those legislative amendments to ensure we fight corruption in good faith in this country, Mr. Speaker, sir. I thank you.
Okay, that statement is committed to your committee. All those things you are saying, make sure that you incorporate them in the response that you will give us as a House, because you are the chair of that committee. Next order. Honorable members, for the convenience of the House, we are deferring orders 8, 9, 10, all the way to 17. So we go to order number 18.
Order number 18, motion, approval of senators to serve in select committees.
Senator Mohamud.
So, Speaker, sir,
I beg to move that pursuant to Standing Order 187 and 189, the House approves the nomination of senators to serve in the Select Committee of the Senate as follows. A. Standing Committee on Energy, Senator George Ochilo Ayako Mbogo, EGH MP, to replace Senator Mercy Chibeni MP. B. Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration, Senator Mercy Chibeni MP, to replace Senator George Ochilo Ayako Mbogo, EGH MP. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move and ask Senator Malala to second.
It is Senator Malala, not Malala. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I stand to second this motion, the swapping of Senator Chibeni and Senator Ochilo Ayako. These are two able senators, Mr. Speaker, and I think the issue of placement of senators in committees should arise out of interest. We've seen senators who have more interest in other committees which they are not in. And Mr. Speaker, this calls for a review of the membership of the committee. We shall be coming up with a review of the membership so that we allocate members with their area of interest, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have seen, Madam Speaker, sorry, I had not seen the change. We have seen members not contributing, not participating in committee transactions just because they lack interest, just because they do not have the expertise to transact business in particular committees. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, as a coalition, we want to say that we are comfortable with the swapping of Senator Ochilo Ayako and Senator Mercy Chibeni in the respective committees. I second. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that pursuant to Standing Order 187 and 189, the House approves the nomination of senators to serve in select committees of the Senate as follows. A. Standing Committee on Energy, Senator George Ochilo Ayako Mbogo, EGH MP, to replace Senator Mercy Chibeni MP. B. Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunities and Regional Integration, Senator Mercy Chibeni MP, to replace Senator George Ochilo Ayako Mbogo, EGH MP. I put the question. Senator Sak.
Madam Speaker, I note the acting leader of majority is trying to rush that you put the question while we want to contribute to this. Madam Speaker, first of all, I support this motion of the swap. Senator Ochilo Ayako, being a former Minister of Energy, I think is well suited in the Committee on Energy. And Senator Chibeni will bring much needed vigor to reinvigorate the Committee on Cohesion. Madam Speaker, the reason I wanted to contribute is this. I strongly feel, and I'm glad the leader of minority is here, that we actually do need to rejig and reinvigorate our committees, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, members should be in committees where they're interested in. We have some committees, and I will not mention, where we're seeing a lot of lethargy. Committees that are supposed to be dealing with such important issues, and we don't know whether it is the interest is lacking from those members, but these are issues that are on the national conversation every day, that the Senate, and their devolved functions, that indeed the Senate needs to be in. And in the spirit of the handshake, Senator Malala, as leader of minority, we can even change leadership of some of our committees. Let us have a taste of some of the members from NASA being chairs or vice chairs. I am willing, Madam Speaker, I am a chair and a vice chair. I'm willing to let go of any of the two, so that we can have, some, people should not feel like they own committees. You don't own committees. Senate in its entirety is supposed to play an oversight role. Madam Speaker, there's no opposition or government in the Senate because we're oversighting county governments. There are county governments that have Jubilee governors, other county governments have NASA governors. So within the leadership of these committees in the Senate, Madam Speaker, let us see a better mix. Madam Speaker, Senator Zani will tell you, in the last parliament, we were both in the National Cohesion Committee. It was a joint committee of both houses. You can imagine how difficult it is. It had 15 senators and 15 members of National Assembly. But because of the level of interest we had in cohesion, Madam Speaker, we, I think, made a record I'm not sure any other committee has been able to achieve. We visited 34 counties in this country. We did peace deals between warring communities that to date, because of what we did, they have not fought again in those areas where we went to. Senator of Turkana will tell you that in as much as there have been flare-ups, but in the area of Lokwar Nakuse, in his county, it has remained largely peaceful. And if not, we are ready to come back now as Security Committee. We were able to achieve so much in such a short time, despite huge difficulty, because of interest. So please, the leadership of this House, from the leadership of majority to the leadership of minority, let's stop acting like we own committees. Please look at them afresh, put members where their interests are, where their expertise lies, so that we can, because the committee is the heartbeat of the Senate. A lot of what we want to do, we cannot do at plenary. But it's at the committee where really the Senate can be felt. And I want to urge my fellow colleagues who are chairs, please, I know we have had a meeting of liaison. I unfortunately was not able to attend. I had an emergency in Kayole, in Choka area, where my people are being evicted and the houses being demolished for very flimsy reasons, Madam Speaker. I want to urge them, let us do more of county visits in these committees. Members are just looking at international visits, yet if you look at the budget that's even left between now and June for county visits, every committee can even be using whatever means of transport. Let's go around the country with these committees. Let Kenyans feel us. Let's go to the villages. It is not just that you want to go to the US or to land, or to Asia. Let us go to those villages and take the Senate to the people. The budgets, Madam Speaker, I cannot say it here because I'll be embarrassing this House. But the amount of money that is left in your committees for local travel is humongous. Yet there's no committee today with a coin left for international travel, Madam Speaker. It is interesting. So let us do that. I support that change. Please bring more changes. Give us, someone like Professor Ongeri should be where he is, his interest is and where his expertise over all those years. Let's benefit from his wealth of knowledge. Over the years, even before I was born, he was already an ambassador, Madam Speaker. Let us have those people. Let us have Senator Mahmood with his huge expertise. Archer Finance, let him leave finance for now. Let him go back to the area where he's really good at. He's good in finance as well, but he's been an ambassador. He's been in transport. He's been in issues of infrastructure, so that when we even were questioning people, they can see professionalism that the Senate upholds. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Senator, I would agree with you, and from where I sit, it's very clear, and it was a big issue of concern when the House came into sitting in 2017, and I think this is a matter that we want to leave to leadership and also raise it with the leadership, so that we see what can do moving forward. I now put the question. I put the question that pursuant to Standing Orders 187 and 189, the House approves the nomination of senators to serve in select committees of the Senate as follows. A, Standing Committee on Energy, Senator George Ochilo Ayakombogo, EGH MP, to replace Senator Mercy Chebeni MP. B, Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration, Senator Mercy Chebeni MP, to replace Senator George Ochilo Ayakombogo, EGH MP. As many as are of the opinion say aye, and those of contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 19, the County Wards Equitable Development Bill, Senate Bills number 34 of 2018, second reading.
Senator Chair of Finance.
Yes. You can second. But read the bill. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the County Ward Equitable Development Bill 2018 be read a second time. Madam Speaker, this bill was originally sponsored by the Senator from Muranga, Senator Irungangata, and after discussions and through a lot of stakeholder
Senator, you need to read the, you need to correct that. Read it as it appears.
I beg to move that the County Wards Equitable Development Bill 2018 Senate Bill number 34 of 2018 be read a second time. Madam Speaker, as I was saying, this bill was originally sponsored by the Senator for Muranga, Senator Kangata Irungu, and then after a lot of discussions, and the original form it was, through a lot of stakeholder participation, and with disagreement, this bill has now changed to the form in which it is now. It's no longer a fund, but an ordinary bill which develops a framework for ward equitable development in our counties. Madam Speaker, the objects and purpose of this bill is to promote the objects of devolution under Article 174 of the Constitution by providing for a legal framework that promotes equitable development across all the wards in each county. It also provides a framework for the participation of the residents of each county in the identification of priority projects in county in respect of which funds are allocated under this act. Madam Speaker, sir, the bill also is set to promote the decentralization of functions and provisions of services by county governments to the extent that it is efficient and practicable pursuant to Article 176 of the Constitution, and D, to ensure equitable sharing of resources within the county. Madam Speaker, the guiding principles of the bill are set out in the bill that all persons and entities under this act shall, in the performance of their functions under this act, is guided by the following principles: that there shall be promotion of equitable and economic and social development within the counties and within the wards. The counties, as you are aware today, when they make budget for their counties, in fact, little attention is given to the wards. A lot of attempts were made by various counties to enact county ward development fund, which has hit some snags because both Treasury and Controller Budget, I think there was a legal snag, and hence it's important that we come with a way of trying to get equitable development within our wards. So, Madam Speaker, this bill, in the current form, proposes a way how county governments are going to identify projects which are ward-based for equitable development. Madam Speaker, a county government shall allocate its resources equitably across all the county wards. For the purpose of for this purpose, the county executive committee, that is the executive committee member for finance, shall within the time frame required ensure that development projects are spread out equitably across all the wards in the county. Madam Speaker, in determining the criteria for allocating funds under this bill, the county executive committee shall ensure that the allocation is not less than, in fact, we propose, is not less than 15% of the allocation for development budget as provided for under Article 107(2)(b) of the Public Finance Management Act. 15%, not less than. We know under PFM Act now, the counties are supposed to make budget 70% recurrent, 30% development. Out of that 30%, we're saying 15, not less than 15% should be allocated equitably among the various wards within the counties. Madam Speaker, this allocation is complementary to any other development efforts by the county government or any other agency. That the fact that these wards have gotten that money should not preclude them from getting other funding. Madam Speaker, the criteria that is developed because there must be a criteria developed on the advisory of the CRA to determine the criteria for allocating of a specific amount of ward or amount of money for each ward. So the money will not be divided into the wards equally, but equitably, according to a criteria to be developed by CRA. But once that criteria has been developed, is a requirement that the county assemblies of respective counties must approve that criteria. And that criteria must be approved. In fact, in the draft, it says within 14 days of submission to the assembly, but I think we'll come up with an amendment at least 28 days so that, there's enough time for the county assembly to understand. But failing which, if they don't approve in those 28 days, then the matter becomes totally law. Madam Speaker, in terms of identifying projects, how do you identify projects for those? Yes?
Senator
Thank you.
Zani, what's the
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sorry.
Senator, I've not given you the opportunity. You are taking the opportunity. Okay, go ahead.
I spoke because I saw the microphone was on. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sorry to interrupt such a flow of presentation that was going on, but consistently the dear lady sitting on the table is being referred to as Bwana, Madam Speaker. So I'm a bit worried about the terminology. Are you sometimes Bwana?
Chair, my chair, I didn't know you are that off today. So recollect.
Madam Speaker, sorry, I don't know whether I've said something else, but I thought all along I was saying Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was saying that if the county assembly fails to approve or reject the criteria within the specified period, the criteria shall be deemed to have been approved and shall be applicable for a period of 3 years. That's the criteria for equitable allocation of funds. Madam Speaker, in terms of identifying projects, the residents of each county shall identify development projects for implementation in the respective county in accordance with this part. The County Executive Committee members shall coordinate the process of identifying projects for implementation under this Act in the respective wards and shall, for the purpose of ensure public participation. Madam Speaker, you realize that the politicians, county assemblies, will have no role in identifying, but it's the public that don't identify the projects. Madam Speaker, the County Executive Committee shall, for the purpose of this Act, collaborate with the respective village councils established in the county under Section 53 of the County Government Act. Madam Speaker, selection of projects by the County Executive Committee, the County Executive Committee member shall...
What's the point of order, Senator Lokorio?
Thank you.
Senator, take your chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would not have wished to interrupt the chair of Standing Committee on Finance and Budget, but he has repeatedly referred to you as Bwana Speaker. So I would, and he may not be conscious of it, so I would like him to withdraw and retract.
Yes, Senator Chair, I've also witnessed that. So can you just correct and recollect yourself for this debate?
I stand corrected, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Madam, I say Madam. I didn't say Bwana. Yes, I'm always saying Madam. Yes. Yes, maybe my M is like B. Madam Speaker, in the terms of selection of projects by the County Executive Committee, The executive committee members shall consolidate and submit the proposals received under in the section said to the county executive committee for prioritization and determination of projects for implementation of each ward. In determining the projects for implementation under the bill, the county executive committee shall prioritize the wards determined by the commission to be marginalized or requiring special or urgent intervention in order to bring the standards of living of the residents residing in the specific wards to the same level as those generally enjoyed by the residents of other wards in the county. Madam Speaker, the criteria to be used for selection of projects, a project meets the criteria for funding under this act if it is a community-based project which aims at ensuring the development of infrastructure that will promote the delivery of basic services and goods to persons residing at the lowest unit of decentralization, established pursuant to Section 54 of the County Government Act. Madam Speaker, the other thing which the bill seeks to ensure is that the projects identified in this under this bill shall be included in the development plan provided for under Section 126 of the Financial PFM Act, that the county fiscal strategy paper provided for under Section 117 of the PFM Act, and the county budget estimates provided for under Section 13 of PFM Act. So this project identified should not be in isolation, but should be able to be fitting within the county fiscal strategy paper, within the county development plan, and also within the county budget estimate. So it should be included thereafter. Any other plan or document provided for under law which may be determined by the Commission as being necessary for the implementation of this project, of this act. Madam Speaker, Part 3 of the bill deals with the implementation of projects. For the purpose of this act, the County Executive Committee member shall ensure timely and efficient disbursement of funds for the implementation of county ward development projects, ensure efficient management of the funds in the implementation of the county ward development fund, projects. So once the project has been funded and is in the budget, the County Executive Committee member is under obligation to make sure that funds set aside for the purpose are meant for those projects within the wards and not to be diverted. In the event, in fact, funds allocated for a project can only be reallocated for any other purpose during the funds allocated for a project shall only be reallocated for any other project during the financial year with the approval of the County Assembly. You cannot, the executive cannot then reallocate funds midstream after it has been already approved by the County Assembly under the Appropriation Act. Madam Speaker, this is a bill which is a great improvement from what we had earlier. In fact, the concern was that we are going to create something like a CDF, which gives representatives of the people mandate to implement projects, thus a conflict of interest between the legislators and the implementers. But these projects are actually identified by the residents with the help of the county executive. Of course, the input, the leadership can have input, of course, when they participate in public participation, but it is ensured that the projects are actually implemented by the implementing agencies, that is the county executive. So the Assembly's role is just to make sure that the criteria is approved by them, and that once the projects are approved in the budget, they are implemented, and there's no disruption in terms of funding. Madam Speaker, a county budget or county plan under County Government Act for the Public Finance Management Act dealing with the allocation of resources shall clearly indicate the manner in which the resources have been equitably distributed across the ward in the county. A county assembly shall not approve a county plan or budget that does not comply with this section. A county assembly may amend a county plan or the development expenditure in a county budget in order to ensure the equitable allocation of resources across the wards. Madam Speaker, in our view as a committee, this is, we think this bill attempts to create a framework for decentralizing further the county functions. I think it's important as a step in the right direction. A lot of people are waiting for this bill. I think in the original form where our colleague from Kirinyaga brought, I think that was similar to what was in the CDF. This is a great improvement. The only thing it does is that it ensures that we implement the requirement of the Constitution, Article 175, 174, 176, in terms to decentralizing further. So, Madam Speaker, this is, in our view, a good bill. I think members have got it. I think everybody should be able to look at it. We need to maybe to debate it a while so that, we reach it, so that, by the time it's enacted or put to vote, it's a move in the right direction that can help us centralize our system further. And also, there are concerns, of course, that 15% is very small money. There are other concerns that 15% is also too much in the light of the fact that some counties have got very little money for development because their wage bill and OML expenses are very high. But nonetheless, this is a very good bill. And with those many remarks, Madam Speaker, and I don't think I've been saying Madam Speaker, I think people are not understanding what we're saying. Madam Speaker, I beg to move and ask Senator Malala of Kakamega to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to...
Senator Senator Malala, even if you are proposed, you cannot take your position to debate before you are given by the chair. Go ahead. Procedure must be followed. This is a house of procedure.
Thank you. I stand guided. Madam Speaker, I stand to second this bill, the County Ward Equitable Development Bill. First of all, Madam Speaker, I passionately believe in the concept. Since I was a member of County Assembly, we have been fighting for this bill to go through, Madam Speaker, and I want to take this earliest opportunity to thank the chair and Senator Irungu Kangata as well for pushing for this noble idea, Madam Speaker. The gist of this bill, Madam Speaker, is that we are going to ensure that devolution works, Madam Speaker. I think the principles of devolution categorically and vividly states that we need to decentralize power and resources down to an inch, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the promulgated Constitution of 2010 provided for a general framework in which we were supposed to ensure that monies are decentralized from the central government down to county governments and further to the villages. But, Madam Speaker, we did not have a legal framework to ensure that those resources trickle down to the villages, Madam Speaker. And therefore, it is with that purpose, Madam Speaker, that I stand to support this motion, to support this bill that is going to ensure that monies are going to be decentralized further from county headquarters down to the villages. Madam Speaker, we visited counties whereby we see a lot of infrastructural development in the, say, the cities or the urban areas. But in real sense, Madam Speaker, when you go deep down the villages, women, children are lacking basic amenities to ensure that keeps them alive, Madam Speaker. You go to a village, a county, you'll find that they're grappling with a basic need of a water point, Madam Speaker. And therefore, this bill, I believe, is going to provide a framework that is going to encourage decentralization of resources from the county headquarters down into the villages, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think the gist of this bill is to encourage bottom-up approach to project identification, planning, and implementation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, most of our county government establishment, you will find that we do not go down to the villages to identify the needs of the people at grassroots. We only sit in hotels and adjudicate matters pertaining counties. We have not interrogated the process of going down to the common mwananchi. Those people who voted for us are not consulted before we bring projects. And therefore, we've had projects which are moribund from the beginning because they did not consult the grassroots citizens, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill provides for identification of projects from grassroots. I think the noble idea behind this bill is that every community has got its own unique problems, Madam Speaker, and therefore it is important that the people of Marama South have different needs with the people of Mautuma Ward in Kakamega County, Madam Speaker. And therefore this bill clearly sets out on the procedure that we need to identify the projects from the grassroots. Madam Speaker, Section 7.4 of this bill encourages public participation. Article 7.4 clearly states on how the county public service officers will sit together with the village councils to identify projects through public participation, Madam Speaker. This also challenges the county governments which have not established the village councils. I want to be proud that my county is the first county, Madam Speaker, to delineate power and also identify that we do have the ward administrators, and further, we've even recruited the community area administrators, Madam Speaker. And therefore, these will also challenge the county governments which have not implemented that particular structure, Madam Speaker, as envisaged by the Constitution, to go ahead and fasten the process of ensuring that they recruit the village councils and the community area administrators, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on this issue of public participation, we need to review on the model of public participation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, public participation nowadays is being carried out as a form of formality. We have people who have not seen the door of a class, but they need to put their input in certain legislation or certain decisions of the county, Madam Speaker. But you see a county government officer going to the ground with a booklet of balance sheets in the name of budget estimates, just to take to a villager to endorse it as a way of public participation, Madam Speaker. We need to have a simplified mode when we go to get views from the public, Madam Speaker. And therefore, I will be encouraging the public officers who will be going to identify projects at that low level to simplify the model in which they are going to get views from the public, Madam Speaker. Second, Madam Speaker, on the issue of public participation, we need to encourage the county officers to give enough notice. We've seen time and again whereby those villagers are given a one-day notice that tomorrow we shall be in Zakula village for public participation, Madam Speaker. I think they should be given enough notice, and the issue of them being given notices in newspapers. Most of these people do not read newspapers, Madam Speaker. I think the county governments should also devise a mechanism, a communication tunnel in which we can communicate to the people on the ground, Madam Speaker, in good time. Madam Speaker, I think I'm supporting this bill because, Madam Speaker, it provides for equitable distribution of resources. Madam Speaker, in the inaugural administration of county governments, we saw a lot of political inclinement when it comes to resource distribution in the counties. If a governor comes from constituency B, then he will influence all resources to be channeled towards constituency B. I therefore want to support this bill because it's going to provide a framework in which the county, the wards are going to get equitable distribution of resources. I have seen an article that specifically says that these will be done in consideration with other projects. But, Madam Speaker, I want to be very cautious with that clause, Madam Speaker, because you can have a flagship project, say in my Yakalo ward in Kakamega County. We are doing a stadium of 500 million shillings. That in itself does not disqualify Mayakalo from getting monies from the equitable share just because you've built a stadium in Mayakalo ward. Madam Speaker, we need to separate this so that we say that we shall have all wards benefiting from the 15% regardless of the flagship projects being implemented in their wards, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to believe that this bill is going to help our counties and is going to stimulate the economies of our respective counties because monies are going to be distributed deep into the villages that we represent, Madam Speaker. And therefore, I want to take this opportunity again to thank the Committee on Finance and Senator Irungu Kangata for coming up with this noble cause. And I want to assure the members of County Assembly that once this bill is passed in the Senate, let this bill not make you forget your core mandate as enshrined in the Constitution of Kenya. I think the mandate of a member of County Assembly has been stipulated in the Constitution and further elaborated in the County Government Act as one, you need to continue representing your people, and this bill gives you an opportunity to represent your people by passing the criteria mode in which you're going to distribute the resources in your county, by identifying, by mobilizing your community to identify right opportunities. And therefore, your representation role can be effected well using this bill. Your second role is legislation, which again this bill gives you an opportunity to debate, to ensure that whatever criteria and whatever formula that you will pass in your respective county assemblies take effect. You have an opportunity to exercise your constitutional mandate on the floor of the House. And your third and most important is oversight. Madam Speaker, most of the MCAs have forgotten their role of oversight. And I want to remind them that the Constitution that we promulgated in 2010 envisaged a situation whereby we needed separation of power between the two arms of the government at county level. We have the executive and we have the legislature, Madam Speaker. For the MCAs to be reminded that the core mandate is oversight. They need to check the executive. These projects are going to be implemented by the executive and not the MCAs. Let it be very clear for them that it is you to ensure that monies allocated for certain projects in your respective wards has been appropriated prudently and the effect has been felt by your people. It is through your oversight role that you'll question the governor why he is not following up on the criteria mode that you passed in your respective county assemblies. Lastly, Madam Speaker, we have got instruments that are being used to implement the development plan in the county governments. We have the county integrated development plan, the CIDPs. We have got the annual development plans, which are extracted from the CIDPs just to come up with budget estimates and identify projects, Madam Speaker. How I wish, Madam Speaker, that the projects that we are going to identify using this bill emanate from the respective CIDPs and the respective ADPs, Madam Speaker. Because, Madam Speaker, we do not want to form a law that is going to defy other instruments of power and the instruments of development, Madam Speaker, that have already been established, Madam Speaker. And therefore, we will want to, if it has not been captured here, let us capture in this bill, Mr. Chair, that all the projects that are going to be identified must emanate from the county integrated development plan, so that we do not come up with other projects outside the county integrated development plan, which eventually we are going to narrow down to the annual development plan, which will definitely now come as the annual estimates, budget estimates in our respective counties, Madam Speaker. And therefore, with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I believe that this is now the right way to go. The other one by Senator Kangata was a good idea, but now we are more specific. We are within the law, and I don't think we are contradicting any other law, because I've seen we've even incorporated views which are already captured in the Public Finance Management Act and other relevant acts that deals with devolution. So I stand to support these and second the chair on this very important bill. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the County Wards Equitable Development Bill, Senate Bills number 34 of 2018 be now read a second time. Senator Zani Agnes Philomena.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Let me start by congratulating the Committee of Finance and Budget for this bill. I think this is what Senate has been waiting for. And I think this is what the county assemblies have been waiting for. And also thank Senator Kangata for conceptualizing the initial bill, and now we understand it is amended. Madam Speaker, in the 11th Parliament, in the Senate Finance Committee, we had a petition. It was a very interesting petition. It came from a member of one of the wards, an MCA from one of the wards, and he was very bitter. And he kept complaining that because of his relationship with the governor, he perceived that he did not have a very good political relationship with the governor, and as a result of that, he claimed and almost tabled evidence that he felt his ward was unfairly targeted and the development was not taking place in that ward. And I remember it was a very, very long petition. He came to the committee and he executed his case and he talked about it for a long time. But I think the importance of that case is that it brought to the fore the inequality and lack of equitable distribution as far as one, resources, and two, projects are concerned. And I think we've moved from the previous Senator Kangata's bill in terms of the monies and now looked at it in terms of putting in the projects, plug in the projects, and ensure that these projects are catered for from the county level. And that's very, very important. One of the tenets of this bill, which is to address marginalization, I think is also very, very key. And I think the right word that you've used there is equitable rather than equal. Because then, with the right formula from CRA and the right measure of interest within the specific projects, and even the notion that the projects will be vetted within the community, the counties will talk about them, very, very important. So that communities also can be cognizant and think through what projects should they come up with, which will enable them to actually jumpstart their own awards. So I think this is what the Senate has been waiting for. This is what County Assembly has been waiting for a very, very long time. The framework, of course, of participation is very, very key, and also social development is very, very key. Madam Speaker, across the board, whichever indicators you look at, you know, whether you look at the Gini coefficients in terms of looking at development within the counties, or whether you look at the human development indexes, there is unequal development. And earlier on, Madam Speaker was talking about the GCP version, which is the GDP version in the counties, which is also noticing there's a lot of inequality. The Equalization Fund did not succeed to do what it was meant to do. I'm not even sure whether that money actually went to the counties, whether it was not. Senator Rigura in front of me, Senator Mahmood, is saying it did not go. So unfortunate, but even if you think about it and look at the amount of money that was put in the Equalization Fund, it wasn't going to create equality across the various counties. And indeed, Madam Speaker, really, equality is something people seek for. You might not get it 100%, the people seek for it and try to get there, but at least the levels should be reduced over time. There needs to be a sense that counties are improving and the gap is closing, and that's what most societies try to do. Now, how do you achieve that? Some sort of cohesion needs to happen within the counties. And again, in the 11th Parliament, that time Senator Sang came with the board's idea, which didn't work because of the whole issue about hierarchies. But what was important about that is that this is exactly what it was meant to do. Members of the county at various leadership levels were to sit together and plan so that, one, you don't have replication. You can imagine the governor is putting maybe the same project, the MP is putting the same project, the county member is putting also the same project. So it becomes very, very difficult. In one of our trips to Turkana County on ECD matters, and as we sat with the members of the County Assembly and the governor, they came up with a very interesting model of how to distribute ECD centers and the money for building them within the counties. And for them, they actually had a measured amount of classes, for example, in each of the various wards. And that was very, very commendable. This even reduces the conflict among people because you can sit down and put it on the table. And I think this is what now this bill intends to do, and to be able to bring it about so that we can have this sort of equitable share. Right through the bill, various components I think are very, very critical and very, very important. Looking at clause 4, Madam Speaker, all persons and entities under this act shall, in the performance of their functions, be guided by the following principles. These are very, very key, and I've alluded to them. Social and economic development, considering equality of all the people, the principles, of course, of devolution, the issues of equity, and also the issue of national value becomes very, very key and very, very important. In clause 5A, and the chair mentioned this as he moved this bill, the proportion is given and an elaborate calculation to do it, that not less than 15% of the county government's allocation expenditure will, as provided under Section 107 of the Public Finance Management Act, is what will be used. But also what is important is that this will take place within the county assembly setup, so that within the county assemblies, members can actually meet, give their projects, and that this can be developed through. Do we have mechanisms to ensure that it moves from theoretical to practical? Yes, we do. Because after that, mechanisms are put into place for the CEC to ensure that these projects are actually carried through. There's one clause which I thought was critical, and this is in terms of the decision, because it says in one of the clauses, and I'm just looking for it in clause 12, where funds are allocated for a project, but they have to be reallocated to something else. Now, this is a dangerous clause. This is a very dangerous clause. Because in county assemblies, there's also going to be politics played. And you can have a ganging up effect. And it's possible for members to say, we are reallocating the projects from this particular ward to another ward and build enough synergy to actually ensure that that money is not used where it's meant to be used. Now, it says that during the financial year, funds allocated for a project shall only be reallocated for any other purpose during the financial year with the approval of the county assembly, Madam Speaker. But I feel that clause is a bit loose and needs to be tightened by having a threshold. And I would suggest a threshold of about 2/3 of the members of the county assembly to be able to change and actually reallocate the money to a different place. I think that is very, very key. And of course, in clause 10, again, the specific components, looking at the development plans, because the projects are meant to fit within the CIDP of the county. Look at the interest, look at the issues that are needed to be looked at within the county. The development plan will be there, it's provided, and the projects will have a plug-in into this particular plan that is already there. And again, of course, looking at the Public Finance Management Act, the county budget estimates provided for under Public Finance Act will also be very, very critical. The cycle also is very, very important, as it is clearly indicated in this bill, that the cycle for the projects should actually come in earlier in the budget cycle so that they fit in. So again, I think the measure of equitability and the measure of ensuring that the numbers, because again, what will be the indicators of these equitable projects? Is it as per the amount of money that is going into the project? Is it as per the amount of people that project is going to benefit? What are the variables going to be? And I think this probably will be a matter of discussion, because some of these decisions are going to be made within the county assembly level and also within the level of the CEC, within the specific county. It's also very important that the identification of the projects will also have a process where members are involved across the county. The residents of each county shall identify development projects. So it's not going to be only on the part of the leadership, but also the membership within the counties. That is very, very critical. And then again, in determining the projects for implementation, the county executive shall prioritize the wards determined by the commission to be marginalized. And I'd mentioned that earlier, and that I think is very, very key. So I think most of the tenets of this bill have been put into place. There's a penalty clause as well in clause 17, which is again very, very broad in my understanding, at least the way I look at it. There's a fine, there's an imprisonment for a term of not less than 5 years, so that means more than 5 years. But where it is going to be a fine, it just says a fine of not less than 500,000, which I think for the members of the county assembly in terms of contravening, I don't think that penalty is stiff enough. And Madam Speaker, I think when the time for amendment comes, we'll be looking at how to amend to make it at least a little bit stiffer, really in the hope that the rule will be adhered to and that the communities can actually gain. The county executive committee member also shall submit quarterly reports, giving very detailed components about how the project is going, the schedule of the work, the compliance with the principles of sound management systems, steps taken towards operationalization of the projects, etc. This is all on paper, and we know we have a lot of legislation. For me, matters county have reached a point where the role of oversight, and we cannot overemphasize this. We did this earlier on in the afternoon with the visiting delegation from Vihiga County. We cannot re-emphasize. Once these have been put into paper, they can only be brought to light and to life by people actually enacting, people coming on the fore and stopping processes that need to be stopped at specific time because things are going wrong, and speaking to it and getting the power that the county assemblies are meant to have in terms of them being a legislative house, so that they can actually be able to oversight, be able to put their foot down. And maybe with this directly concerned with development within the wards, maybe there will be this sort of impetus and extra zeal, because it will count at the end of the day, because also in terms of re-election, it's going to be a basis. How did you perform with your project? So I think that hope that also the MCAs within each of the ward will be very keen to ensure that that project actually works. We'll also maybe bring another angle to oversight, another more indulgent and more stimulating angle into project management. Madam Speaker, we've reached a point in this country where we need the projects to be initiated, we need them to be processed, and we need them to be completed for the sake of Kenyans. And I think this bill will get us there. I support.
Very well. Senator Lokorio Were Petronilla.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this worthy bill, the County Wards Equitable Development Bill. And I would also like to thank Senator Kangata for having come up with this, the idea first, and thank the committee for improving on the Kangata bill to make sure that this bill conforms with the PFM Act. And we have seen that in section 12.5, they have actually complied with the PFM Act by ensuring that the county assembly does not allocate those funds to particular wards, but instead approves the county plan or budget and can as well amend the county plan. This bill, Madam Speaker, is important because it brings to the fore the essence of devolution, one which was equitable distribution of resources, taking development to the people and making the people a part of that development through public participation in deciding which projects are important for them and which ones should be prioritized. Therefore, there is a need basis in coming up with these projects instead of coming up with white elephants. This bill will also help give independence to MCAs so that they can focus on oversight instead of trying to play an executive role. They will focus on their legislation and oversight role. And the bill also allows the county assembly to decide, for example, on the criteria to be used in allocating of funds to the wards, the same way Senate, for example, questions the allocation of resources to counties that is presented by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. I want to commend this bill, especially the part where they say where a project is cancelled, that is section 12.2. If a project is cancelled or discontinued during the financial year, the funds that had been allocated for that project will not be returned to Treasury, but will be reallocated to another project to be implemented within that same ward, so that we retain this equitable distribution of resources and development is cut across the counties and in all wards. The MCAs also, this bill favors them in the fact that they are partaking of the criteria that is developed by the Commission. They can look at it, relook at it, review it, agree with it, so that the criteria that is used to decide on which ward gets what funds for development is agreeable to all the members. So I also would like to reiterate that this bill is going to cure the problem of incomplete projects in our counties. In section 5, it says that the county executive committee member and the county assembly shall not approve the reallocation or appropriation of funds unless the completion time for the project does not extend to a period of more than 2 years. So that will cure the problem of incomplete projects that we have experienced in our counties. And with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to support.
Senator for Masabit, Senator Hargura Godana.
Thank you, thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important bill. I'd like to thank the Committee on Finance for coming up with this bill. That's the County Wards Equitable Development Bill. Also, I'd like to thank Senator Kangata for having come up with an idea, although it was a bit similar to the CDF, which had the problem of involving the MCAs or members of the County Assembly in executive work. But I think this one The improvement done by the committee is good, and I think this is a legislation which we can comfortably pass to have it being implemented by the county assemblies or the county governments to follow it, because it gives a criteria. Madam Speaker, I'd like to say from the onset that in my county, for the last 5 years, we have worked on this kind of a process, such that in the last 2 years, the planning or the budgeting is almost similar to what this bill is proposing. For example, the county executive will look at the budget or the allocation they get from the CARA. Then from there, they will set out their budget for recurrent. Then the development is also shared between the wards and the county. We have, for example, the ward-specific projects, we have departmental projects and county flagship projects. Based on that, for the last 2 years now, we have had very clear amounts going to the wards. For example, it's not, the only problem is it's not equitable. They have been doing it equally. For example, in Marsabit, there are 20 wards. 2018, 2019, each ward was getting 75 million. And from the beginning, the executive made it very clear that each ward is getting 75 million. Members of the executive, led by the ward administrators and also officers from the executive, used to go around, hold public barazas, so to speak, in the wards. Then a ward is told, this is the amount you have. Can you come up with your projects? Then, because from there, the ward members will sit and say, we have maybe 4 locations in this ward. Can we share down this money to the location level? Then they'll sit down and come up with their projects from that level. At the end of the exercise, what the executive will have from each ward is projects which have been identified. And from there, it's for the executive to determine what amount, which projects can this amount of money actually fund. Because the members of the public will not be experts in knowing that if they required a borehole here, then this will be the cost for the borehole. Then they'll say our priority is a borehole here, a dispensary here. It's for the executive now to assign the number of projects which can be covered by that amount of money. So basically, it's a process which has been tried. This year, the wards in Marsabit County, I think last month, public participation was done, and each ward was getting 50 million. 50 million because the county is now trying to also give some attention to departmental projects and also the county flagship projects, so they had to reduce the ward allocation. But if you look at the percentage we are proposing, for example, 2018-19, Marsabit got about 7 billion. And already they have allocated 1.5 billion directly to the wards. That is more than 15%. Because 15% of 7 billion is about 1 billion and 50 million. So they have already done more than that. So it's possible. The only thing is now this law gives them a framework. That was the executive trying to do its work by being fair in trying to make sure that each part of the county gets development money. But this is a framework which is in law so that the county, different wards are not at the mercy of the executive, but it's in law. And I think that is what we are trying to cure here, because if we don't have, I can remember in the other, in the 11th Parliament, we tried that process with the county, and we even said, use the CRA formula, share your money, the development money among the constituencies, then go down to the wards. Sometimes you have to innovate, and it depends on the goodwill of the executive. But this kind of law will clearly make sure that what we are trying to do is actually anchored in law, and if the executive tries to go against it, then it will not be accepted. And the law says very clearly that the county assembly does not approve the budget until and unless it's in line with this law. That is what Part 4, Section 13 says. It has to be in line with this law for them to approve. Madam Speaker, one thing which I'd like to check, to bring to the attention of the chair of the committee is that if you look at Section 6.2, which gives the county assemblies the power to approve that criteria, it talks of approve or reject. Chair, Madam Speaker, I think it should have amend also, because it's not a matter of only approving or rejecting. The county assembly can also amend that formula, that criteria which was developed by the CRA. So let's have that clearly, that it can also amend, so that each county, this is a formula which will be developed by CRA, but each county assembly can adapt it to its own prevailing factors in that county. And also the factors can sometimes change from year to year. So let's have that amendment included there. Madam Speaker, the other one is the section on the project's continuity, that is Section 12, which says that a project cannot, considering the amount of money we are giving to these wards, for example, the one I gave, the example of Marsabit, if a ward gets 50 million, then they scale it down to the village units, which are the locations. Then one will end up with 10 million shillings. That 10 million can not do maybe, cannot complete even one project, or sometimes cannot do two. For example, you have a borehole. If you drill a borehole, you have to do the drilling, you have to do the installation, then you have to do the piping. It may be more than that 10 million. But there are other also priorities. So once they start a project, there must be that continuity, because that's one problem we have on the ground. For example, in my county, there are areas now when I go to, I find a borehole has been drilled. That was what was in last year's budget. This year there is nothing, and that borehole has not been equipped. So they'll be telling you, we want this borehole equipped. I normally ask them, what did you allocate your monies for this year? So there must be that continuity. A project must be completed. If a dispensary is started, then there must be construction of the necessary facilities. Then it has to be equipped, and it has to be staffed. So that will not take 1 year. It has to take several years. So there must be that continuity, and the good thing is now you can see Section 12.3 gives that room for that continuity. But the only thing is the CEC, or the County Executive Committee member, I'm reading 3B, which says the County Executive member shall seek approval of the County Assembly for appropriation of monies in the subsequent financial year during which the project is to be undertaken for completion of that project. I thought what needs to be done, each year the money has to be budgeted for. So I don't see how the CEC will seek the approval of the County Assembly for the appropriation. But what they need to do is they always capture the project so that it's completed. So each year a project has been started, must be completed. If it takes 2 years, then it must be captured so that an ongoing project is given a priority before a new project is started. Because if we don't do that, with the experience of what is happening in Marsabit, where this kind of procedure is used, communities normally easily forget what they have started. They will start a new project every year without completing the previous one. So the best thing is for the executive to always have that. You have started this project, so from your 10 million, automatically 5 is going to complete the project you started last year. Now we have only 5. So there must be that continuity so that we don't have projects all over the place which are not being utilized. Then, Madam Speaker, if you check the same section 12, subsection 7. I didn't get the reasoning behind this subsection, which says that all funds allocated to awards shall be cumulative and shall be carried forward from one financial year to the next, including funds returned into the account or funds which are not utilized for whatever reasons. Because the current financial system is such that once the money has been allocated from the treasury to the county accounts in the central bank, that money doesn't go back. What happens is if the year lapses, then whatever monies have not been spent are supposed to be brought forward and budgeted for in the next financial year. So there is no that risk of monies going back. That used to be happening in the old system where you have a centralized government where at the close of financial year, whatever you have not spent goes back and you don't have a way of continuing with that project again. But in this case, I think we need to be very clear. You need to put it in such a way that maybe what was for that ward should still be for that ward, but there is no fear of monies going back. Madam Speaker, the other part is reporting and oversight, which of course gives the county assembly that, so to speak, the powers to make sure that the executive complies with this law. I'm saying this taking into account that currently, I think the county assembly has very small leeway in terms of changing the budgets of the executive. I think they can only change, if I'm not right, 1%. See, that is not changing. If you can only change 1% of a budget, then you're not changing anything. But with this kind of a law, then you have a way of holding the executive to account, that if they don't follow that, then you cannot approve the budget. If they didn't follow this law by giving at least 15% to the wards, then you will have the power now not to approve that budget. So at least that gives the county assembly more powers, more say in making sure that the budget is equitable. The budget covers the whole county, irrespective of which part of the county, especially in multi-ethnic counties where we come from, irrespective of which constituency or which community supported which government or which party, then you have your rights anchored in this law so that you always get the same shares as any other part of the county. It also takes into account marginalized parts. Sometimes we think when you come from a county, the whole county is kind of at the same level, which is not true. So this one takes you into account. Within the county also there are areas which are more marginalized than others. So when this money is being shared, then there must be some way of taking that into account. And I don't know whether the bill addresses that far. It just talks of marginalized counties. But then that should be in the formula which is developed by the Commission, which talks of equitable but not equal. Madam Speaker, I think the problem we had with the first version of this bill was maybe involvement of the members of the county assembly in execution of the works, but in this case, it's very clear, and I think we need to quickly pass this bill so that maybe from the next financial year, the county governments have a very clear way of making sure that whatever we allocate from here does not become a preserve of the executive to reward and punish people, taking into account that the governor, the head of the county government, is an elected person. So there is that conflict which comes in directly. If you give that person all the powers to decide where to take development, then more often than not, his political inclination will come in, and some areas will be favored more than others. And this should also extend to all other sharing of resources, even if it goes to as far as employment opportunities within that county. There must be fairness, the way just we are saying resources, even when it comes to employment and all other, because employment is also a resource, because it's the same monies we allocate from here which are being used to employ people. So if that sharing is done also the same way, then there's that equitable sharing. If not, then we are leaving it at the mercy of one individual who also has his own political ambitions, his own political people to reward, and that way we will not have done fairness. And Madam Speaker, I thank the committee for coming up with this bill, and I hope that once we pass it, we'll see it being implemented on the ground, and we'll have a more equitable distribution of the resources which we share from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Sam Ongeri, Senator for Kisii.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also want to lend my voice in support for this bill. It's come a long way. We've had a lot of consultations, and I want to thank Senator Kangata and now the Chair of Finance for making innovations on this bill. And looking at it in its present form, this bill intends to achieve 3 elements. The first element is the equitable growth in the wards, which has been missing. The second element is providing a mechanism of selection of projects. And the third element is reinforcing the oversight mechanism so that these resources are used optimally. So for me, when you capture these 3 elements of the bill, what it really is saying is that from henceforth, all the MCAs, the executive, and the public will be made alive of what they want to do in line with the Article 174 of the Constitution. In other words, that people will now be conscious of their fundamental rights, both social and economic rights, that they are entitled to in arriving at that level. I've observed the process of CIDP. This process is conceived, developed at the executive level. They make what you call a semblance of public participation. When I say semblance, they literally handpick a few market centers and gather professional commentators who follow them from one market center to another. And then in the end, it's deemed to have been passed by thorough public participation. This sort of element, the new bill, I think is going to focus the attention of the ward of their immediate needs. So that's one element that is going to cure, will be cured through this bill. I would like to see a situation that the County Integrated Development Plan captures in a manner priority areas in every ward and priority areas at the county level. Once those have been captured in the CIDP, one then would expect that the annual development plan will now be able to focus into areas of interest and concern for the local communities. That will give meaning to the local village councils. These differ from, interests differ from one ward to another. In one ward, they may require boreholes, or water, or a dispensary, or indeed, they may require more ECD classes. They may require other road networks within their interests. They may require, for instance, the warehousing facilities. We just recently passed a bill on warehousing, where they are producing cotton and they want to store their cotton for their marketing purposes. For them, that's a priority. I see the CIDP, many counties have incorporated markets that have been ostensibly built to help the local villages market their wares. But you see, there are no resources given to those markets. And I have in mind, for instance, a market which was set in one of the wards in Kisii County and has not been opened. The Rajambili market, for instance, it's never been completed. And this is where everybody brings their agricultural produce. So let's look for innovative way of financing certain things that have a tendency of promoting the interests of local productions or local interests. And therefore, this county wards equitable development bill will, in a greater measure, address that issue. Let me move on to annual development plan. Again, in a similar manner, I expect that the county assemblies, through their wards, will take an active role in establishing priority programs that are required in their wards, so that when this thing is finally passed, what they should be watching for is that the resources are allocated equitably within the framework of the fiscal strategy plan. Because without that consideration, it becomes very difficult. You reduce the ward representative in trying to persuade the executive to give them a project. And therefore, they end up being at the mercy of the executive, and they lose focus of wanting to do their own things in accordance with the requirements and the interests and the desires of the ward representatives. It's an important feature that we're introducing in this. The other element, that when the fiscal strategy paper is being laid before the county assembly, one of the things that should form an automatic checklist is, has the equitable sharing plan included in their budgetary provisions in the fiscal strategy paper, which is being presented before the budget, before the county assembly? Has it been included? If it has not been included, then of course you invoke, either you approve or amend or reject clause, which has been cited here. I think it's clause 6.2 that has been put here. So it gives the ward representatives and the community a sense of belonging, that this is our proposal, this is our priority, and this is the manner in which we want to do it, and therefore, let's now apply the mechanism that is required. And the mechanism is that all these things must fall in line through the CIDP, the annual development plan, and the budget plan. Once that has been captured, the element which is left out is how far can 15% carry us through. Some counties have very meager development plans because the recurrent expenditure is gone beyond the expectations. Then we have this animal called the pending bills. It's quite a headache for many counties. It's now going into billions. And I hope and I believe the chair, since now this has come under your docket, this presentation, that the issue of pending bills which tend to distort the budgetary proposals of counties should now be looked at. And it will be interesting to know at the end of this debate how far the issue of pending bills has been determined. Because without making provisions for those pending bills, even this bill itself will become an innovative bill, but seated in the shelves without the implementation. And I think we need to look at these elements, which are so critical and so important on the issue of pending bills. The element that obviously comes out, which forms part of the oversight that I talked earlier on, is the fiduciary risks that are attendant to the usage of resources within the county and by the county executive. By now, and I think through the committee that I also attend, the CPAC committee, we shall be presenting before you what we consider fiduciary risks that are attendant in the counties, and they differ from one county to another. That may help us to identify the pitfalls that will make this kind of a program fail. Because without attending those fiduciary risks, it's important that we do so to ensure that this noble and a very important bill that has now come before this House is carried right up to the end, because at the end of the day, it has better results if well managed. And with the fiduciary risks being taken care of, I think it has a better results than we have ever thought before. The CDF, those of us who had the opportunity to use the CDF, I must admit, if you use it correctly, you achieve certain milestones that stand even after you leave that constituency. I can attest, in my case, that some of the projects that were implemented through the CDF that would have never seen the light of the day during the budget circles of the yesteryears are now a living monument of what that development can be to the people. And you can see the way the community appreciates the water projects, the school programs, the bursaries that have churned out students who went to the universities, from high school to universities. They have now finished, they have come back, they are engaged in society, and you see messages coming into you. Thank you for helping us through the bursary program. I'm now so-and-so, I'm somewhere else. What can I do for the community? This is what this kind of bill should be able to generate, social transformation, apart from endearing the economic development at the village level. Then you give meaning to the village councils. And I fully support this thing, this bill. One area that I need to, I think, put caution is when these funds are put in the budget. How do we ensure that these funds go to the intended projects? They are not hijacked or sidetracked to go to some other elements. You will hear, for instance, they might come up with a flimsy priority like a library. First of all, they put money into that library. When you check the existence of that library, it's non-existent. So I hope, those are the fiduciary risks I was talking about. I hope that when this money is budgeted for by the executive, that it will actually go to the intended program and the projects and seen through. That brings me to the fourth element. What is the capacity of the officers who are going to, first of all, do the survey, do the sensitization within the community, synthesize and put the program in the format it's expected to be put so they can attract funding. It means then that we must be able to ensure the capacity building of officers who have been seconded to the sub-counties and to the wards is such that they are able to know what their roles are. Otherwise, they will take you around circles on very flimsy and very trivial things that will not be able to work out for us. And I know there are many people who want to contribute to this bill. I'm happy, the Chair of Finance, that you have also considered to amend Section 108, subsection 2A of the County Governments Act by inserting A1(2), the implementation of the County Wards Equitable Development Fund. Because without that amendment, that would have flown at the face of the County Government Act, conditions under which there is a deviation from financial objectives. I think it's a good amendment, and I think once it's done, there should be clarity that the County Government Act has been amended in order to take into account these changes and giving reasons, the implications of this deviation, and also giving proposals to address the deviation. And I think we have already done it through this bill, and if that is followed through, I think everything will come to place. Finally, let our county assembly leaders see this bill as enhancing their ability and the capacity to oversight the executive. And let them not use this opportunity to also blackmail the executive because of personal interests. It's for the common good for everybody, and I think we should use this opportunity to be able to be supportive to one another. Let the executive play their role, give them the room to play their role. Let the county assembly also play their role in this oversight program. I believe personally, when I go to address my county assembly in this annual address, these are some of the issues that I'll be addressing, because when we work together with the Senate and the county assembly, and we all emphasize the role of oversight, I think we'll see value for money being put into programs and projects that we have approved through the CRA, the county revenue allocation, and the horizontal allocation to each county. I think the national county revenue allocation, the horizontal allocations. It's very critical for me, it's critical for us all, and I think would have brought sanctity and sanity in the way we do things in a devolved system. Thank you again, Senator Kangata, for having come up with an idea. Although we have mutilated it, but it's been mutilated for better service for the people. I thank you and I support.
Senator Kangata Irungu, Senator from Murang'a.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute on this bill. Let me first congratulate Chairman of the Committee of Finance, my friend, Engineer Mahmoud, for having agreed to take over this bill and coming up with a very good proposal. Let me start by saying that no one really owns a bill. Whenever you come up with any idea, I think every member of parliament or a senator should be amenable to receive better and superior ideas from whichever source that information may come from. So therefore, I was more than happy when my friend engineer requested that he takes over the bill and be able to shepherd that bill. I knew that he's very competent. I also knew the committee will be able to come up with a better bill. In any event, a committee bill is usually easier to navigate Senate and other parliamentary structures as compared to a bill that is brought by an individual. Let me say that the amendments that have been contained in this bill, which contrast to my original idea, are good, they are positive, because one, there were concerns that were raised by the Commission for Revenue Allocation, the Treasury, and also the Budget Office, concerning whether this bill negates the principle of separation of power, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the person who came up with the idea of separation of power is called Montesquieu. He is a French philosopher who was living in this world in 1700 or thereabout, that century of 1700. It's called the 18th century. And Montesquieu was arguing that power should not repose in one institution. During that time, every power was fused in the entity that is called the monarchy. So there was no checks and balances. You had what is called an absolute monarch that would abuse its power. It was not accountable to anyone. And it was not based on meritocracy. It was by heritage. So therefore, he proposed that there is need to separate the so-called three major functions of government. That is judiciary, the whole idea of making laws, and executing those laws. But then again, it is known that you cannot have complete and distinct separation of power, Madam Speaker. Because, for instance, you will find there are instances where the executive may want to make some laws. You don't have to keep on referring back to the National Assembly or to Parliament. And that is why also you find executive does what is called subsidiary legislation. On the other hand, Parliament also make decisions which appear to be like executive in nature. So therefore, based on that philosophy of separation of power, we thought of looking at this law, relooking at it, and therefore ensuring we do not negate the whole idea of ensuring the executive, the legislature oversees the executive. And one thing that the committee has done is to take some crucial powers concerning the implementation of this law to the Office of the Executive in charge of finance in various counties, CC Finance. That is, to me, a positive thing. Number two, this bill has also provided that the money that is going to be going to the ward will be minimum 15% of the development expenditure. Madam Speaker, that to me is positive. The third change, which I have seen in this bill, is doing away with my proposal concerning creating committees I agree, if we could have created committees like the CDF system, we would have made this bill to become expensive to implement. It would have made this bill to bring other attendant cost of huge bureaucracy, and therefore it made a lot of sense, Madam Speaker. You do away with those committees, and then you give that power to the CEC in charge of finance, so that you ensure there is good implementation and there is seamless implementation. However, the Assembly has powers. Which powers, Madam Speaker, are oversighting this fund? How? CEC in charge of finance will be compelled by this law to be reporting to the Assembly the progress made towards implementing ward projects. Two, he will be compelled to bring what is called quarterly reports before the committee, the county assembly, saying how far have we gone with ward projects, how much money we are paying to those ward projects, are procurement processes okay, all those that is provided for under this act. So therefore the assembly will still has some oversight powers which are clearly provided for under the Constitution and also under this law. Madam Speaker, what are the main advantages that this bill is going to give to the country? I'm going to cite 5 reasons. Number 1, governors have become omnipresent demigods in our counties. Governors, Madam Speaker, they have been oppressing MCAs, they have been oppressing residents. If you don't toe the line of a governor, you'll find a situation where there is no development money that is being sent to your ward. You are being punished, MCA, because of opposing the government or even oversighting the governor. But that is very unfair, because the actual people who are suffering are the common wananchi in your ward. So this bill is going to ensure the assembly is independent. It's going to conduct oversight without fear that their wards, there will be no denial of development. So you will find MCS oversighting governors in a very strong manner. They will not be blackmailed. And to me, that is positive. We are going to have stronger institutions at the grassroots level. Number 2, you will find that our budgets at the county level, the way they have been prepared for a very long time, they have been prepared in a manner that is not coherent, in a manner that is hides information, in a manner that does not indicate, for instance, Madam Speaker, what ward, which ward is going to benefit to the programs of a county. Madam Speaker, let's say, for instance, myself, I come from Murang'a County. We have about 35 wards. The people of Kambitu ward in Maragua constituency, the people of, let's say, for instance, Kinyona ward in Kegumo constituency, residents of Keru in Madhioya, Mogoro in Kangema, residents of Wango ward in Keharo, the people of Moroka in Kandara, the people of Kehumbini, for instance, or even people of Kahumbu, or even people of Kimororiwempa or Kakuzi, name any ward. All those residents want to know, in this budget of Murang'a County, how much are we getting? What is the benefit? Currently, when you look at any county budget, it does not indicate. It does not clearly state how much, for instance, Kenyana is going to get, how much, for instance, Kamasharia in Madhya is going to get. So this bill is going to liberate and clarify that, so that people of commercial will be knowing, okay, this year we expect this much. This year, people of Mogoro ward or Kanyanyaine, we expect this much for this ward. That is important. It is even provided for in the Constitution. Remember, Article 35 of the Constitution provides the right to information. This bill compels governors to provide that information to the people who reside in those respective wards. That, to me, is positive. Number 3, Madam Speaker, we have had a lot of complaints by the people in where we represent concerning skew development. You find some governors or even some county governments, they're only developing regions where they usually get bulk of support. So it's like they are weaponizing devolution against their perceived political enemies. This bill is going to liberate Kenyans from that kind of tyranny. It's going to ensure every ward, every region, notwithstanding political decisions that they made, they do not suffer. They do not lag behind. There is equitable distribution of development. For the reason why we should support this bill is because it is a constitutional obligation, Madam Speaker. Article 176 of the Constitution indicates objects of devolution. One of the objects is providing for something called decentralization of services. It is also one goal and also aim and also have a principle of the Constitution, Article 176, Article 174, that is you ensure you foster community development at the grassroots level. Now, Madam Speaker, without this law, you do not have any statute to actualize that dream. You cannot be able to do that. And therefore, this bill, in actual sense, is a bill that is geared towards actualizing a constitutional requirement. Otherwise, you would be having a situation where we have a constitutional provision, but that is not actually effected on the ground. It's just an aspirational clause in the Constitution. We need constitutions to bite, Madam Speaker. We need constitutions that have real meaning to the wananchi. And the only way to do that is to provide for this. Because why? This one gives procedures of effectuating that constitutional provision. It gives some prescriptions, and to me, that is a win. Madam Speaker, finally, why I think this bill should be supported is because it's going to bring uniformity in this issue concerning ward development. I'm aware of some counties that have thought about this problem. One of them is Meru County. The other one is Elgeyo Marakwet County. There are very few, about 5 out of the 47 counties that we have. So we need standardization of principles. And therefore, this one is going to standardize principles concerning ward development. And to me, that is positive. It is something that now makes ward development something rational and certain. Remember, one function of law is to bring certainty in management of public affairs, and this one will do that. Madam Speaker, there has been a question concerning, I was fearful, so some people, the critics of this bill, they have argued, one, it's unconstitutional. No, to the critics of this bill, that has been addressed. This is now a very constitutional bill. Number two, a second criticism of this bill is that we are replicating CDF. No, we are not. We have ensured this bill does not duplicate CDF or even try to replicate CDF, Madam Speaker. Remember, CDF, number one, is a bill that was taken to court. It was declared a constitution, but then again, the members of parliament were able to remedy those sections of unconstitutionality. But this one, we have looked at the Court of Appeal decision concerning CDF. We have ensured we have drafted a bill that does not negate any constitutional principles or philosophy, and therefore this is a very constitutional bill. Another critics have been saying that we may duplicate development. This clause, this constitution has been embedded to the various provisions of other laws, including PFM Act, that is Public Management Finance Act, to ensure this bill adheres to those provisions. We have ensured that this bill also respects other major institutions, importantly, Commission for Revenue Allocation. We have ensured this is respected, and therefore, where there will be no problem concerning a bill that appears to negate other provisions, other statutes that are already in place. Madam Speaker, also Treasury needs to be informed that this is not a money bill, and I think also the National Assembly, they had raised concern whether we are creating a money bill or not. No, we are not creating a fund. There's no fund. In fact, even the title has been changed. It is the County Wards Equitable Development Bill. So we have done away with the term fund that was in my original bill. So therefore, National Assembly, therefore Treasury, this is no longer a money bill, and therefore your concern have been taken care of. Yes, there was also some people who raised clerical issues, grammatical issues. Again, those issues we have ensured this bill does not contain any grammatical or clerical error. So it is a very good bill that has taken into account. This bill has also undergone very good and great public participation. We have listened representations from civil society. We have listened to county governments, also Commission for Revenue Allocation, Budget Office, and Treasury. All those representations, we have ensured that this bill does not offend anyone. And therefore, I would urge my colleagues in the National Assembly, please don't have that imagination that this bill is intended to create other potential political opponents to you. You know, I've also heard that rumor going around that this bill may be used by MCA to fight members of parliament. No, it has nothing to do with that. It is something to do with development. It is purely to ensure our areas receive equitable development. With those few remarks, I support.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Enoch Wambua, Senator for Kitui.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to also add my voice in support of this very important bill. Madam Speaker, I want to begin by saying a good idea gives birth to a better idea. When Senator Kangata, the senator from Murang'a, brought this bill in its original version, Madam Speaker, I went on record and said any move by this Senate to move development from the county headquarters to the wards is a move that should be supported by everyone in and outside this august house. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Committee on Finance and Budget for making amendments to the original version of this bill, and actually congratulate them because in the process of making the amendments, the spirit of the original bill has not been lost. Madam Speaker, I will focus my attention and my comments to four clauses that I think are very important. Clause number 5, clause number 7, clause number 11, and clause number 12. Madam Speaker, it will be remembered that in the early 80s, a time that development was concentrated at the center, specifically in Nairobi, and decisions were made in Nairobi affecting villages far and wide across this country. In his wisdom, the former president of the Republic of Kenya, then Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, came up with a policy which was called District Focus for Development, in which then districts became the focal points for making decisions on development within those localities. Madam Speaker, this bill is a throwback to the 1980s, where now we are setting in motion a process of further devolving decision-making from the county headquarters to the ward level. And now the focus for development will appropriately and rightfully shift from the county headquarters to the wards. Madam Speaker, clause 5 of this bill that speaks about equitable sharing of development funds in all the wards in a county, to me, that is a very important clause. Madam Speaker, this is important because it will no longer be discretional on the part of any governor to decide whether or not to take development to certain wards. It will never be whimsical on the part of the members of the county executives to decide the amounts of monies that will be allocated to wards that supported the governor and the wards that did not support the governor. It is not going to be mandatory and a requirement of the law that at least 15% of development funds shall equitably be distributed in all the wards within a county. Madam Speaker, when it comes to the amendments, I will be proposing that, yes, it is okay to talk about at least 15% of development funds and take into consideration sections within wards in a county that are marginalized. Madam Speaker, the decision as to which wards are marginalized and which ones are not, I would be urging the committee to consider equipping county assemblies with a criteria or capacity to be able to determine marginalization within the counties, or equip them to be able to interrogate the list of marginalized villages coming from the Commission with a view to amending where necessary. Because it will be wrong, Madam Speaker, to leave that decision with a commission sitting in Nairobi, whereas the re-implementation of the projects and the decisions on what projects will be done rests within the wards. Madam Speaker, this clause is equally important because if it is properly implemented, then it means there is no ward within any county in this country that will be left behind in development. And in fact, if then we develop every ward in this country, then it means that every county in this country will be developed, and it means that the entire country will benefit from development. So my view, Madam Speaker, my considered view, is that this actually is one of the most important bills that has ever found its way on the floor of this House. Madam Speaker, the other clause is clause 7 on public participation. And Madam Speaker, this is really like music to my ears, because then this bill will guide what constitutes public participation and what constitutes funny arrangements by governors and CECs, which are termed public participation, but in real sense, they are just gatherings to rubber stamp decisions of the executive. Madam Speaker, the decision for what project should be implemented in what part of a county must be the decision of residents of that county. And what makes this bill so important to me and to my case is that a resident sitting far away from Kitui town, which is the headquarters of my county, say a resident sitting in Motonyaido or Mukwanima or Katulu or Kesio, in other ward in Kitui South, and another resident sitting in the north in Usweni or Wikiduki, Sikuro Chuso, in Mwinge North. Another resident sitting in Vochamatu, in Zombe, in Mutito, in Kitui East, and other residents who sit on the west, in Yenzova, in the Anazao, in Kwasiko, or in Kitui West. All those residents will be participating in making decisions on development concerning them and about them. Madam Speaker, this for me is a winner. The third point was in clause 11. Madam Speaker, again, when it comes to amendments, I will also be asking whether we are not putting a lot of responsibility on the county executive members and excluding elected leaders, the MCRs, from that space in terms of decision making on what projects need to be implemented. Because, Madam Speaker, at the end of the day, the people who are responsible for wards per se, so to speak, are MCRs elected in those wards. And I think, yes, their core mandate will be to oversight the implementation of development funds by the county governor. But, Madam Speaker, I think we should create within this law some space for them to participate, even if it is just participating in mobilizing residents for public participation in respect of identification of projects, in respect of implementation of these projects through project implementation committees, and then the evaluation of those projects. Madam Speaker, I was saying this in relation to clause 11 because, yes, we are saying that the county executive committee should ensure timely and efficient disbursement of funds for implementation of county ward development projects. That is true, and that should be the case. But, Madam Speaker, to a certain extent, actually to a big extent, I hold the view that this House has let counties down when it comes to disbursement of development funds from the national government. The Public Finance Management Act is very clear, Madam Speaker, on disbursements from the National Treasury to the county governments. Those disbursements must be done the first week of the month or no later than the 15th day of the quarter, the beginning of the quarter. But we have witnessed situations where the National Treasury withholds funds from county governments, and those funds are released towards the end of a financial year with no time for counties to absorb development funds. So, Madam Speaker, I think a time has come through this bill that even as we take CECs to account on disbursement of funds for development within wards in a county, as a Senate, we must also find a way of ensuring that funds for development from the National Treasury arrive in the counties in good time. That way, Madam Speaker, we will be doing good service to our people. Madam Speaker, finally, I want to comment on clause 12. I had said I would do only 4 comments. On clause 12, Madam Speaker, this idea of 12.1, funds allocated for a project shall only be reallocated for any other purpose during the financial year with the approval of the county assembly. But the juiciest one for me is 12.2, that if for any reason a project is cancelled or discontinued during the financial year, funds allocated for such a project shall be reallocated to another project to be implemented in the same ward. Madam Speaker, this is a very good provision because we have also witnessed situations where, especially in counties where the pioneer governors lost in the 2017 election and new governors came into office. But, Mr. Speaker, we have seen situations where the incoming governors or the sitting governors would choose to abandon projects that were done by their predecessors and start new projects, or reallocate monies that had been allocated to projects in wards that did not support them and take those monies to wards that supported them. This law, Madam Speaker, is very good because it ensures continuity of projects. If a project is started in a ward, then there is no way of reallocating that money to another project outside that ward. Madam Speaker, this is a very important bill, and for purposes of allowing my colleague that I know wants to contribute to this bill, I will end my contribution there, and Madam Speaker, I support.
Well done, Senator. Senator for Nandi County, Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to join my colleagues in commenting and thanking the brainchild of this bill, Senator Kangata, and now it has given a better way for the Chair of Finance. Madam Speaker, this bill is very important going forward because it is now removing shackles of doom from the ferocious handling by the governors of capture and recapture of MCS. Madam Speaker, it is very interesting that every function you go and the governor is present, the MCS fall over themselves of displaying sycophantic tendencies of hero worship and cult personality for the governors so that most of them can get development in their region. So it has become a privilege more than a right. And every Kenyan, as per the Constitution, Madam Speaker, and in the spirit of ensuring uniform, equal, and equity development across our counties, should by right get the fair share of development. But when you go to most of our counties, Madam Speaker, the state of capture and recapture has been fully perfected by governors across the 47 counties. And that is why you find most of the county or wards across various counties, the MCA who is not in line or who does not toe the line of what the governor believes is right, that ward is most likely to suffer. And I think as senators, we have noticed this, and the governors have perfected the issue of stick and carrot by ensuring that those MCAs who are sycophants are more given priority in terms of development over those who want to do their constitutional mandate of oversight as provided for in the Constitution. I want to agree that the MCAs play a primary role in terms of oversight, and Senate as the big brother does the secondary oversight. Madam Speaker, I want to commend the Committee of Finance for fine-tuning, and as my brother said, a better idea gives way to the best idea. My worry since the inception, or this idea had been floated by Senator Kangata, was on the aspect of principle of separation of powers, because the county assemblies we know provided constitutionally are supposed to play oversight. Yet we were now bringing in them to do the executive work. But I'm happy this thing has been clearly brought out by the bill. And therefore, when you look at Section 9 of the County Governments Act number 17 of 2012, and it provides for the role of an MCA, they are supposed to maintain close contact, present views, opinions, and proposals of the electorate to the county assembly. And I think this is very important because it is in line Article 10 on national values and principles of good governance. One of the key is public participation. And they say present views, opinions, and proposals of the electorate to the county assembly. And I think for us, Madam Speaker, it is very important because when you look at Section 9 of the County Governments Act number 17 of 2012, it is very clear that the aim is to ensure that they present views, opinions, and proposals. Because as leaders, when you go to every ward, as my colleagues have tried to enumerate and ensure every ward is captured, there is an issue where ward, for example, the ward that borders your county, Chemelil Chemaso ward, to the ward that borders Wasingishu County of Ndalat ward, to the ward that borders Kilibwani and Wasingishu, or even borders the ward in Tindret ward that borders between Kericho County and Nandi County, their needs are so unique that the main ward where hosts the county headquarters, like the Kapsabet ward, which holds the Kapsabet headquarters of Nandi County, they have so unique and diverse needs that this bill will ensure we have equitable development agenda across the entire county. Because one county might need water as a priority. But when you go to another county, they may need roads. For example, in Dalat, they may need roads because it is poor. One county, for example, the Tindret sub-county, which borders your county down there, is more of disadvantage. It is more of marginalized. So you find most of the counties that are there, they must be considered in a unique way in terms of development. And I think when this bill comes up, Madam Speaker, it will cure all these different way of ensuring that we have a uniform and equitable development across the county. Madam Speaker, and even the Section 2B, Section 9 to A and B has been very clear. A member of county assembly shall not be directly or indirectly involved in the executive functions of the county government and its administration, delivery of services as if the member were an officer or employee of the county government. Interestingly enough, most of the MCAs are guilty of this Section 9, 2A and B. It is unfortunate, and I know it's not all over all the MCAs across the country, but it is unfortunate that most of MCAs, Madam Speaker, and I hope this bill will assist them, they are the PROs, public relations officers of some of the governors. You go there saying governor has done this, governor. So I always wonder, why should we have communication departments in most of these county governments? If the MCAs can be the PROs, the communication directors of the governor. Before the governor speaks, they say, you know, we have graded this road from point A to point P. We have used these millions. Then I'm wondering, why should we hire PROs and executive directors in charge of communication or press secretaries in the government? They have been killed of this Section 9, 2A and B. I hope with the new, this bill that we are providing for the county wards, equitable development bill that will provide a fund, the MCAs, most of them who are killed of Section 9, 2A and B will be able to stop. Madam Speaker, when you look at, and I want to thank Senator Dr. Agnes Zani, the distinguished senator, for bringing out the issue of cross-county product 2019 report, or what we call county GDP. One of the biggest challenges, and I hope the bill will try and look into the future, is how to handle own source revenue. You find 12 to 13% of any financing in terms of county governments across the country comes from own source revenue, OSR. Unfortunately, and these were in discussion, that we need to agree how to work with Kenya Revenue Authority to ensure we see leakages in terms of revenue collection in our counties. For example, Madam Speaker, in the auditor's report, I think it is 2014-2015 of Nandi County, where the county government used to bank was less than 100 meters between the county government's headquarters to the National Bank in Kapsabet. It was only less than 100 meters. But when banking was being done of revenue to the county treasury, daily 96,000 used to get lost. So some of these we need to tighten and ensure we give a creative way of ensuring that we have own source revenue to supplement, because most percentage is being funded from the national government. And that is why we must agree when this cross-county product 2019 report or county GDP came out, we must agree that even the financing that being funded, the county governments must be sufficient. And that is why, Madam Speaker, interestingly enough, I was watching some discussion yesterday in some television. The prophets of doom, the people who do not believe in devolution, are now saying county governments or devolution is not sustainable. It is not sustainable because we have allowed these leakages of own source revenue. And interestingly enough, the county governments, even under indictment of the Auditor General in all audit reports, even up to 2017-2018, they have given and passed a sentence that own source revenue, we must see how to seal leakages and ensure. But you find that the Council of Governors and the governors do not want a model like KRA, because the more the leakage, the merrier for many of them, so that they can ensure that this revenue being collected can ensure they fund their lifestyles and everything. Three things, Madam Speaker. When I heard somebody, Senator Ongeri, talk about CIDP, and it is very sad, that issue has always been a problem across all counties, the issue of CIDP. And now my worry, Madam Speaker, it is better we have cast this in law. CIDP, the county government went around the entire counties, and I know it is across 47 counties, listened, synthesized, analyzed, came with a report, went into the county assemblies. Every citizen in all specific wards had their unique challenge or development needs. Interestingly enough, the county executive just have gathered and used. Those CIDP are gathering dust in most of the county governments simply because they are disregarded. So I hope this one being the law will assist, because all these are saying, in accordance with Section 53 of County Governments Act, in using village council, I hope they will now take seriously the public participation. Because this law, as said before, the people will be given opportunity to identify specific development projects based on their needs. But, Madam Speaker, how county governments do their public participation has now been turned into a photo session or tea-taking session or soda-taking sessions, just where the people are just being called upon and being told, we have agreed on this, but because soda and level of bread or some 200 shillings are being given, the people are not given opportunity to ventilate through serious issue. So I hope, because there is a case of CIDP, I hope with this county government's county wards equalization bill, we'll be able to take seriously, because it says we will need to identify through the village councils, be able to be keen. And I think they have quoted in the spirit of Article 174, Article 10 of the Constitution, and many others, and I think they'll be able to handle that. Madam Speaker, I think I have handled on the issue of, I think, clause 5 is not less than 15% of the county government's allocation for development expenditures provided for under PMF Act. Madam Speaker, you know, when the Auditor General, the other day, and I think when you look at also this report, cross-county product report, you look at the Auditor's General report, most counties were accused of either allocating 0% to development, or even less than 20% as provided for, which should be even around 30% to development. The issue now, how will we ensure that county governments allocate these 15% to development at the ward level? Because according to the Auditor General's report, which also has been circulated in media, most of the county governments allocated 0 in terms of development. I want the committee, and when it comes to amendment, to relook, to ensure that it is sanctional for county governments. The county executive can decide to buy flowers, to buy tea, to buy national newspapers, to buy everything. But in terms of ensuring that the allocation of 15%, coming against the challenge of 0% to development, because even my county is standing at 80% in recurrent expenditure, the wage bill has just busted. The county governments, Madam Speaker, are now employment bureaus. A new governor comes, like my governor. I don't want to cast aspersion in other governors, although they are in the public domain, because this one I can prove. When my new governor came in, he fired 1,000 people that had been hired by the predecessor and hired another 2,000 on 3-year contract basis. The wage bill now is skyrocketing. And yet we are looking at the same money that is being allocated, that we are saying, after 30% or 20% has been allocated to development, we come again and look at 15% to allocate to development. And that is why I was saying own source revenue is very critical in sustainability, especially on development issues in terms of collection of revenue at the public level. Clause 7. The residents of each county shall identify development projects for implementation in the respective county in accordance with this part. 2, the county executive member shall coordinate the process of identifying. But I want to request that we include the village councils and also the local leadership, because as been provided by Section 53 of the County Governments Act number 17 of 2012, there is already an elaborate provision under Section 53, of the County Governments Act, that has brought out and ensured that village councils can be used to identify projects. But I want Madam Speaker, my apologies, Madam Speaker, when this coordinate, identify projects, implementation, I wish the village councils committee can still be used for follow-up. Because the CECs are phone, if the boss will call them, you remember the boss is the governor. He can say, because people of Ward A did not vote for me, that project, I don't want it to be implemented. And because of the wisdom of the CEC, he can just decide and say, let us go and decide that we remove these things. We don't ensure we don't do it because of one or two vested interests. So, Madam Speaker, I would still request that even as the CEC coordinate, ensure the identification process, we still need the village councils, even we still need the local leadership, the opinion leaders, we have civil society groups, we have CSOs, among others, who can still, the local community. Madam Speaker, even we can use the famous Council of Elders. We have Low Council of Elders, we have Kalenjin, Kamba Council of Elders. They come from those specific areas. We can still use them to identify these projects, because at the end of the day, we want to serve the community. And leaving that unilateral decision to CEC, let me assume it is the CEC of Finance and Planning, and also the wisdom of the governor. Because of vested political interest, and Senator Wambua said, because Ward A did not support me, vote for me, or he imagines that the opponent will come from that ward, they will not support in terms of development. Madam Speaker, on the issue of CRA formula, I know myself, the legal, the finance, and devolution, we are waiting for the report from the CRA formula. I know this year we are going for census. These are formulas that we would like to do. Even I want to ask the county assemblies, in their wisdom, I know they have the capacity to try and possible to cascade down the CRA formula, so that even if you are in Kisumu County, for example, you are in Nandi County, for example, or Kitui County, for example, You can say in Nandi, because Tindre sub-county is marginalized, let us use the formula by cascading down of the CRA. Let's assume Masab or these other parts of Mgwen and Tesumei in terms of poverty index, so that we cascade down and ensure we allocate based on the strength. So that, because, for example, there are many other, Madam Speaker, and you can kindly add me 3 minutes. I know we are almost coming to close. Maybe you can add me 2-3 minutes so that I wrap up properly. Is ensuring that clause 9, when you look at article 43 on economic and social rights.
Honorable Senator, I'll give you another 1 minute if you can manage to wind up.
Okay. Madam Speaker, because I was trying to ensure everybody, finally I want to say this bill has captured the spirit and substance of Article 43 on economic and social rights. We hope our MCAs will use this law to ensure we bring equitable and equal development across our counties. I thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support.
Honorable Senators, it is now 6:30 p.m., time to interrupt the business of the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until tomorrow, Thursday, 21st March, 2019 at 2:30 p.m.